Good evening and welcome to the Jersey City Zoning Board of Adjustment. This is our regularly scheduled meeting for May 27, 2021. This meeting is coming to you via Zoom rather than in person in accordance with the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act of 2020, which allows meeting to be conducted by electronic means during a state of emergency. Which has been ongoing for over a year at this point. So with that, let's get started unless you have any other introductory notes, Lindsay. Okay, then we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic
and one nation under God,
indivisible,
and
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lindsay, are there any sunshine announcements?
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this hearing was given to the Jersey Journal, the Jersey City Reporter, and posted with the clerk on May 25th, 2021. And we have the notices to be marked.
And that would be B1 for tonight's hearing. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Bridget. Okay, can you please take roll call whenever you're ready?
Mm-hmm. Okay, Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Arujo.
Here.
Commissioner McCormick.
Here.
Commissioner Shadid.
Here.
Vice Chair Donnelly.
Here.
And Chairman Jacobs.
Here.
So we have 8 present.
Thank you. While we have 8 present, Commissioner Shadid is not going to be voting on the first agenda item. So we have 7 commissioners effectively for the first item, and then we can discuss, going forward whether someone wants to stay on as a non-voting alternate commissioner. Okay, can you swear in staff, please?
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony or comments you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any correspondence?
No, but I can go through the agenda at this time, what's carried and what's going forward.
Sure. Do you want to share your screen?
Yep. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Outside of the item listed under adjournments, again, the first 2 items for 199 Summit, we are going forward with that. Item 11, case Z2077, address 163 to 165 Delaware Ave, is being carried to the June 10th regular meeting with preservation of notice. So that's our next regular meeting. We are going forward with items 12 and 13. Item 14, case Z2047, 286 to 294 Arlington, is carried to a date uncertain without preservation of notice. They will be renoticing. We will be hearing item 15, which is 740 Ocean. And item 16, Z20-92, that's for 127 Delaware. They're carrying to the June 24th regular meeting with preservation of notice. And item 17, we are not going forward with that Z2093. That's 26 Manhattan. That's carried to a date uncertain without preservation of notice. They will be renoticing.
Thank you, Lindsay.
No problem.
Okay, so if I understand, there's 4 cases that are going to be adjourned. The one listed as, the 11th agenda item, 163 Delaware. That is going to our next regularly scheduled meeting. Can you remind everyone when that is?
That's June 10th.
Okay. And then the next one that's being adjourned, 286 Arlington, which is number 14 on the agenda that you just went through. That's being adjourned, but to no determined date at this point, right?
Just because they're renoticing, it's likely it'll be the next meeting or the following, but since they're renoticing, it's just carrying it to a date uncertain because it's not going to be listed as carried on the next agenda.
Okay, so it's similar guidance for the next two, 127 Delaware and 26 Manhattan. One of them I thought has a date certain at this point.
Yes, 127 Delaware is carried to a date certain, June 24th, with preservation of notice.
Okay. And 26 Manhattan, no date certain at this point, right?
Correct.
And I have no idea if they're related. Does it make sense to hear 163 Delaware? No. And 123 Delaware? No, they're not. They're not next to each other. Got it. Okay. So with that, if you were here for any of those four cases, they are not going to happen today. They're going to happen in the June meeting or some later out date. So no need to stay on. It's a beautiful day outside. If you're here for that, you can leave the zoning board meeting. We'll proceed with the first agenda item, which is case Z20-041. The applicant is 199 Summit Avenue and 62-64 Storms Avenue. And Vinny, do you want to, while Mr. Harrington is coming up, remind us of where we stand with this application?
I think we stand with, we're going to hear more from the public, and we're going to hear a little bit more about the other buildings on the site. Is that right, Chuck?
Yes, yeah, for the record, Charles Harrington, Colin Foley, on behalf of the applicant. Now, yes, when we left off, I believe we wanted to keep it open for the public if they had additional questions, and I believe the board wanted some additional information on the Storms Avenue properties, and then Mr. Ward may have some additional questions for our professionals.
And
So-
the application itself has been completed, except for if there's follow-up questions, I think, and all of the commissioners who weren't in attendance at that time have read the transcript and sworn accordingly. Is that right, Vinny?
That's correct. The only commissioner that wasn't there who's here tonight is Lenora Brown, and she's read the transcript. The other 6 of you were present at the hearing.
Okay, so Mr. Harrington, how do you want to start, reopen this, I guess, before we get into the public?
Yeah, I don't know. I know we left off at the last meeting with the public having questions, so I don't know if you want to maybe open it to the public first, or do you want us to address their initial questions? And I know there's like some additional information about the Storms Avenue property that the board wanted to hear about. Maybe we present that in the event the public has some questions. There's some questions about the cost of these improvements that we're doing. So maybe it's better off if we address some of their questions and present in response, and then the public they may have additional questions, right?
I think the best way to start, but you do whatever you want for your presentation, is probably, because while there's probably a lot of people that have questions, to reduce the number of duplicate questions, if you could start by 1 or 2 sentences summarizing, here's kind of what we talked about last time.
That's good.
Here are the questions that were raised by the public. And we've put them in these categories and we're addressing them so that it can be, I think, organized to then we don't really need to hear from more of the public who are going to ask the exact same things. But if they have additional concerns, then they can also be raised by your team.
Sure. So yeah, and then then address in general some of the questions that were raised last time by the public. There was a concern by one neighbor, I believe, of the fence in the rear of her property. She fronts on Storms Avenue. what would happen in the event that that was damaged or destroyed during construction. My client would be replacing, and providing new fences along the backyards of the Storms Avenues residents that back up to this property. There's also some concern about parking. We can show you tonight that, we're providing, we think the parking is sufficient, but we have looked at it again. We can provide 6 additional spaces if, the board deems that's more appropriate. There were some questions about, or concerns about the setbacks along, I believe, the Crawford, 22 Crawford. We can show the board how, we have a greater setback than what you would have if you were to build actually an as of right structure there. There were some discussions about density. Again, we believe it's appropriate. Our count, it depends on, what the final lot area that you're including. I know Mr. Ward's report says 140 units an acre. Based upon the square footage in our application, it's about 120 units an acre. So we think that's an appropriate density for this site. There was a question about mechanicals on the roof and noise generated from that. We will have acoustic screening around the roof so that any noise goes up. There was concern about the detention tank on site and possibly leaking. That will be a typical detention tank with plastic the piping, so that will not be an issue. And there was questions about the Storms Avenue renovations. I believe the board was interested in seeing better renderings of that and details as to what's going to happen there. So we can show you that. We have Mr. McKnight, the architect that prepared that, can walk you through that. There's also a question about the costs of the repairs to the 64 Storms Avenue. We have generated a cost sheet prepared by my client that we can enter as an exhibit, but that cost is approximately $351,000. We also have a cost estimate on the park improvements that was estimated to be about $796,000. That does not include the annual maintenance going forward, which the developer owner would be responsible for. So with that said, I think I want to maybe start Mr. McKnight if he's here. And I think if you can promote Charles Height, I think Charles is going to share his screen and Mr. McKnight is here to speak to the 64 Storms Avenue sites.
Sorry, who else besides Charles Height? Am I switching over?
James McKnight.
And is there anyone else?
Well, you can bring up now Adrian Malia. You might as well bring him up at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McKnight, are you
I'm here.
okay? Bridget, do you want to swear in Mr. McKnight?
Would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And Mr. McKnight has been qualified as an expert in architecture many times before this board and the planning board. And I'd ask that he be accepted in that regard again.
We recognize Mr. McKnight, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And now, Mr. Height, if Charles, if you could share your screen, because I believe Jim is going to refer to that with regard to the Storms Avenue.
Correct. Okay.
Great.
So you want me to just start talking about the presentation here?
Yes, please, Jim.
Okay, so this particular building is from somewhere around 1900, so it's 120 something years old. It's a frame building sitting on top of a brick foundation. It's twin 3-family houses divided straight down the middle, sitting on a 50-foot lot. There's shallow side yards on both sides. But as you can see from looking at it, 64 on the left, 62 on the right. Center line right down the middle divides the two edifices from each other. And they have identical mirror image layouts as far as the apartments. So the building is in relatively original condition, even though it's 120 something years old. It really hasn't been disturbed too much. You'll see some photographs in a second. Basically what my clients want to do is restore this building so that it'll once again have another 120 years ahead of it of good use. And to do that, it's pretty extensive. As Mr. Harrington said, it's over $350,000 worth of work that has to be done to this building because it really hasn't been taken care of in any sense in any time lately. So basically on this first page, you can see the straight on facade. We're going to reconstruct the brick stoop that leads up to the porch. The entry door is going to be restored and replaced. The entry door lighting inside behind those glass doors will be replaced with a period ceiling fixture. The windows along Storms Avenue are going to be wood framed, factory painted windows with exterior grills to mimic the existing ones that are there now. The windows on the other 3 sides of the building are going to just be vinyl windows sized to fit the existing openings. The siding is going to be replaced with modern cement shakes that will match the texture, size, and color of the existing siding. And then down below, its brick foundation is going to be all repaired and all the mortar joints replaced and tuck pointed. So if we want to go to the second page. The fence in the front and on the sides is going to be rehabilitated. That fence is more modern than 120 years ago from the looks of it, but it'll be easy enough because it's wrought iron to either replace or repair it to make it look good again. The lamp on top of the porch entry is going to be replaced with a period piece. So exterior wise, we'll be bringing it back to its original appearance. Third page. Just the COLA code there. The brick's going to be repaired and the entry stairs are going to be replaced. That's basically all this drawing's telling you. So the darkest shade is the stairs in the middle, and the lighter shade is the existing brick foundation wall. Same thing here, looking at the back of it, looking at the other side of it.
Mr. McKnight, correct me if I'm wrong, go back to that sheet. Aren't you filling in the light wells there on the first floor?
The light wells? Oh, I'm sorry, where are you referring to?
Above the, I don't know how to describe it, I guess on the first floor, not the basements or cellar level, under the gables.
Oh,
On the
the
rear
dormers
elevation.
you're talking about.
Under the dormers, the windows on the first floor. I don't know how else to describe it.
Okay.
The windows, I guess, to the right and the left of the center window. Charles, on the rear elevation?
On the
Center
rear
window.
elevation?
Yes,
Oh, on the rear elevation.
correct.
Okay.
We called out in the report an expansion of non-conforming use part of the site plan in that area.
Just according to the site plan, it says reconstructed first floor and basement entries in the back. Oh, and then it says infill existing rear yard light wells. Okay, yeah, so it's, yeah. So it will have an expanded footprint as far as those two light wells are concerned.
And that is why part of the application does request the variance for the expansion of the non-conforming use. Mostly because of the reduction in the lot area in the subdivision, but that would also be an expansion.
Yeah, I just wanted to put on the record that exhibit, I guess, wasn't entirely clear just because there will be work being done there.
Right, and I should actually take a step backwards. This collaboration of sheets here should be marked as, I believe, A6 is what we're up to, as 62, 64 storms exhibits.
A6.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, if you want to continue.
Okay, so we were just going through those side elevations. So this is the site plan off our architectural drawings. And it shows that we're going to be using Marvin Ultimate Wood double hung windows, which is a premium brand of windows, to say the least. So the existing site plan just shows the two buildings, symmetrical on the 50-foot site. There's an existing remains of a brick garage in the back that's going to be removed. And in, I don't know if you wanted me to talk about this, but I mean, originally the site's 240 feet long and you want to make it 100 feet long now. So that would, change the values of the existing lot coverage, et cetera. But as far as the building is concerned, if you want to go on to the next page, you'll see the photographs of the existing building. And you can see from looking across the street, what a pleasant building it was originally, and how great it'll look if it gets rebuilt and improved, and what an addition it'll be to this particular neighborhood. That's, when you get close, you can see that all the woodworking is, in need of repair and painting and et cetera, et cetera. The building needs a lot of work. That's why it's going to cost over $350,000 to repair it. Down at the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the details of the fencing that we're going to restore. On the next page is more close-ups of the brick masonry on the basement level, which is in dire need of restoration. But as you can see, it's nice brick. It's finely detailed brick with fine brick joints and stuff, so it'll come back to life nicely. That's the front step that's falling apart. And the next two pages are just details of the woodworking on the various levels of the building.
Any specific questions for Mr. McKnight on this renovation or condition of the property? Okay. Then what I'd like to do too, I'd like to then bring up Mr. Melia. He's the architect of record for the main buildings. And if Mr. Melia, he could, show you where the proposed parking spaces could be that I referred to. He also has, further discussion. I kind of glossed over some of these comments that he can address in better detail for the board.
Would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And just state and spell your full name for the record.
It's Adrian, Adrian, last name Melia, Melia.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Melia, you heard me give a gloss, a overview of our responses. Could you maybe provide some additional testimony regarding those and any exhibits that you have to show the board?
Certainly.
We previously accepted Mr. Melia's qualifications in the beginning of the application, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so he remains, we continue to accept your qualifications, Mr. Melia.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is a exhibit which needs to be marked.
We'll mark that as A7, and if you could identify it for the record.
Yep, it's titled Optional Additional Parking Exhibit 1. We feel like we have enough parking spaces for the amount of units we're proposing, but after hearing the neighbors' concerns, we could add 6 more without any impact on the site plan. You can see here, this is what we're on top. This is what we're currently proposing. And what we can do is we can continue this subgrade level and essentially add on, which won't impact any of the other site elements. It would just require that the applicant excavates a little bit further. So that would involve, or that would entail adding 6 onto the total. So it's 172 units with 105 spaces, would now be 172 units with 111 parking spaces. I just want to go over some of the neighbors' comments in a little bit more detail. Mr. Harrington kind of brushed through them, but if some of those neighbors are on again, I just want to go through each of the 6 that had the opportunity to speak. And I took some notes, obviously, but reviewed the transcript as well, just so I could make sure that we had some answers for them. The first neighbor that spoke was Mr. Balchan, and he lives at 209 Summit. And that is right next to our project here. We're actually demolishing 207 Summit. It's a small 2-story, which is adjoining 209. Just going to share a screen. So this is just a site plan. The gray shaded area is our building. 209 right next to it on Summit. 207 is being demolished. So obviously, understandably, he's concerned with, what's going to happen with construction. And at this time, it's a little premature to tell him the specifics of what would happen, but I can reassure him that there's safeguards that the Jersey City Building Department would enforce prior to any commencement of any work on site. It's just that we wouldn't know what those are. It would be dictated by Jersey City. But his main concern with this building going right next to him was loss of light. And so I prepared this exhibit, which needs to be marked.
Mark this as A8, and please identify it for the record.
It's titled Proposed versus Permitted Impact Exhibit. And essentially what this is a diagrams, sun and shading diagrams to represent if we didn't pursue this application as planned and we built something else that was conforming with the bulk, that impact may actually be more significant on his light and air than what we're proposing. Essentially, what we're proposing is a taller building further away, and we feel that that is a more appropriate in terms of the impact on the neighbors than a smaller building that is closer. And you can see here that this is, the red line represents the permitted height, which is 39 feet, 3 stories, right on the property line, which is permitted. And, you know, we've taken 2 examples, like middle of summer and then the equinox, of the shading impact that that would have on his rear yard. You can see that permitted structure, 3 stories, would effectively put Mr. Balchan's yard in shade for more than half of the year. And to the right of that, we have a diagram that shows the permitted height, but what we're proposing, and this section here is on Summit, but it's aligned to his building. So when the sun is in the south, he could expect that most of what is in shadow, the shadows cast from our proposed structure would happen on our side and not on his side. Now, I can't say that there won't be any shading, but if you compare the two, if you compare what could be built, that's 3 stories and 39 feet at 0 lot line, that is far more impactful than what we're proposing. So for the extra 16 feet, 11 inches of height, we're going between 36 and 40 feet away from his property. So we feel that that is better for the immediate neighbors than building a shorter building. Similarly, Mr. Amir at 22 Crawford Street had the same concerns about the scale of the building being too big, his west-facing windows right here, and him possibly losing light. And my response is similar to that for 209 Summit, in that you have to compare what we could build or what an applicant could build on this property within the permitted zoning, which would allow for a 3-story, 39-foot structure that touches his building. If that was constructed immediately to the south, the impact on his light would potentially at times of the day be far more impactful than what we're proposing. Similarly, the Storms Ave building that we're saving, that could be replaced with another 39-foot structure, and you would see that these red lines would represent an alternate proposal to what we're doing, where the setbacks are such that the impact would be more significant in some cases than what we're proposing. Now, he did mention that he was concerned about the trees. This is the Storms Avenue building, lots 18 and 19, and there's currently some large mature trees back here, and he was understandably concerned that those were going to be lost. And no one can argue that nobody wants to lose greenery, but it has to be put in the context of we're replacing this green area with a park that the whole neighborhood can enjoy, and not just a private yard that really only some people benefit from. Also, Mr. Dorff at 32 Storms Avenue had concerns about the density, but mainly in relation to parking. He was concerned that we didn't have enough parking spaces, and I just spoke to potentially adding 6 more spaces if the board felt that we didn't have enough parking. We can certainly do that, but also that that there wasn't really any consideration for SUVs, and there was a question as to whether these spaces could accommodate an SUV. The answer is yes, they can, but not only can an 8'6" by 18 space accommodate an SUV, but we have 13 spaces that have clear space adjacent to them. So out of all the parking spaces, there's each space at the end of the row has space clear next to it that a larger car, like a truck, could park there comfortably. Also, with regard to the parking, I just want to note that we are eliminating the curb cut from the Storms Avenue building, so that will potentially give more street parking on Storms Avenue. And we're shrinking the curb cut here at the proposed park down to 10 feet. So you have the potential to have 2 more street parking spaces on Storms Avenue as a result of this application. Another neighbor, Mr. Doherty, he owns 18 and 20 Howard Place, which front onto the site right here in the back. He was concerned about, cars coming around this choke point, potentially hitting his garage. To address that, we do have on the plans currently a fence, a curb-mounted fence proposed. So, that would obviously be a barrier to prevent any damage to his property. It was already mentioned about his concern about the detention tank. Those are HDP pipes. They don't corrode. So there's not typically an issue there. He also expressed a desire for more affordable housing. We have 10 of the 172 units currently designated as affordable. We feel right now that that's an appropriate provision. He also commented that there was a fire hydrant on his property, and there is one here, but it's not actually in use. And as part of this application, it would be removed, and that area of land would be returned to Mr. Doherty. Mr. Zola lives at 4 Howard Place. He was concerned about the compatibility of the project. The planner can speak again if needed. He pointed out, a number of similar multifamilies in the area, but if needed to elaborate, we can have the planner address that in more detail. He was concerned about the mechanicals on the roof and noise pollution. Obviously, the roof is the best location for them as opposed to on the lower terraces. They're screened with an acoustic, they're all screened with an acoustic screen that will direct the noise upwards. So we feel that this is the most appropriate way to mitigate noise. He was concerned about the overlooking of the second floor terraces on this project for these lots here on Howard Place. We do have details where it's called out for an integrated fence and planter. We have a detail showing that that's 6 feet high. So anybody standing on this deck, there will be a visual barrier so that there's not an overlooking concern. And that goes for all of the terraces on the project. They all have a 6 foot high screen. There was a question about the yards on the Storms Avenue building. Right now they have a very long rear yard, and as a result of the subdivision we're proposing, there was a question about whether or not that yard was going to be too small. And just wanted to comment that it's 17.6 feet deep according to the civil drawings that we provided, which we feel is appropriate. Again, we're taking that excess yard and we're utilizing it to provide a park as part of the overall application. So, I don't know what use an additional 120 feet of rear yard would be for these 3 families. I think it's better suited as, a park that the public can enjoy. Again, with the SUVs, just one more comment, like most of the units, over 75% are either studio or 1 bedroom. So this really translates into a less family oriented building, people that would have, lots of kids that would require large SUVs. And I say it again because I know that it came up a couple of times with the neighbors that they were concerned about people parking large SUVs on the street. There was a question about whether the parking would be free, and if tenants, would be asked to pay for the parking, which would result in them ultimately parking on the street. That was a major concern. And, as part of the condition of approval, we could certainly have it made that the tenants are not able to receive parking permits. And I think that would alleviate the concerns of the neighborhoods that all of the people that all of the tenants of this building would not be able to park on the street. Lastly, there was a comment on the driveway on Summit. And, you know, obviously in Jersey City, traffic is a problem everywhere, and the impact that this project would have. And I can only say, I can't say that it won't have any impact, but just be mindful that this application is less impactful than the previous use was. So that was virtually everything that we received in terms of feedback from the neighborhood the last meeting. But I'm sure that there's going to be more neighbors and more comments, so I'll wait to see what those are.
And Mr. Amelia, could you speak to the brick color too? There was some discussion about that.
Yeah, thank you. It didn't arise at the meeting, but we have been, the applicant has been reaching out to neighbors regarding the project. And currently we are showing a 3-color scheme. There is a darker red base, a medium red, and then a gray on the top. And this finds its way around all the facades of both buildings. And one of the neighbors, who I don't know if he wants to speak tonight to this, but he was concerned that the 3 bricks may be a little too much in terms of how quickly the building might date. And it was his suggestion, he's an architect, by the way, that he would prefer to see the base brick, which is this dark red, continued up and just go with a 2-brick color scheme. So effectively eliminate this middle color and just have the darker red color continue up and have a gray brick at the top. So we would happily, you know, proceed with just a 2-brick color scheme for these buildings.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Amelia. So, yeah, at this time, I think we've addressed the public's comments. I think we've addressed some of the questions from the last meeting from the board, but and I'll defer to the chairman as to whether you want to open it to the public or if the board wants to ask some questions.
I mean, if anyone from the board has any immediate questions for Commissioner Brown, if you have any questions, since you obviously have a chance to ask them last time, you know, I'll just briefly open it to the board before reopening it to the whole public. Okay. Then we'll open this up to the public. Lindsay, if you want to go over, you know, what the rules are, how people can call in.
Sure.
Like that.
So if you're here to,
Does the commissioner want to be in place of Ahmed? Does anybody want to be the timekeeper?
Phone, let's see.
I can't hear you, Mr. Green, if you're speaking for the record.
I was not speaking for the record. I wanted to see if I could get my clock on my phone, and then I would volunteer. But I wanted to make sure I could do it.
Okay, Kim, if you want to do it, great.
Clock.
Okay, Commissioner Green will be the timekeeper, and he will let you know when you have 3 minutes overall to speak, and when you have either 1 minute or 30 seconds left, Commissioner Green will let you know.
okay, if you have a question or a comment for 199 Summit, you can click raise hand toward the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in, dial *9. That's how we'll know you have a question or a comment. And to unmute yourself, you would dial *6. So again, I see one hand raised. So I'll just get started. So if you have the ability to turn your camera on, please do so. It'll be easier to swear you in that way. So first, I'm going to switch over Sullivan Johnson. Okay, if you're able to turn on your camera and audio, just state and spell your full name and provide your address for the record, please. Again, that's Sullivan Johnson. Okay, you are muted. There you go.
Sullivan, raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you would state and spell your full name for the record.
Full name is Sullivan C. Johnson III.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
You too.
Shall I proceed?
Yep, sure.
Okay,
So-
okay, okay, great. Yes, my name is Sullivan Johnson. I'm a committee person over here in District 6, and the project is neighboring. And I do recall going to a meeting, I guess it must have been about 1.5 years ago, where we first had an opportunity to take a look at the plans. And I will say that the attendees at that meeting were supportive of this particular project. I've had an opportunity to take a look at the plans myself, spoken with some neighbors, and I think I can speak for a good number of people here in my neighborhood that are looking forward to the project. We found that the developer has been someone who's, been very much so willing to work with people in terms of the ideas, suggestions, and even concessions that they were looking for. So I just wanted to say that I am certainly supportive of the project. My wife, unfortunately, she's in another room, is supportive as well. And I just wanted to go on the record as being so. And that's pretty much what I have to share.
Mr. Johnson, I didn't get your address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize for that. I am at 14 Storms Avenue.
Storms, great. Awesome, thank you.
And also member of the block association that we have here for Storms Avenue.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, next, it's a phone. The Zoom name is Moto G5S Plus. Switching you over to panelist. If you could turn your camera on if possible. Before you jump in, please state and spell your full name and provide your address, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Henry Hernandez. I am a resident of 50 Storms Avenue.
Okay, and Mr. Hernandez, would you raise your right hand to be sworn?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. And could you state and spell your full name, sir?
Okay, my name is Henry Hernandez. Last name Hernandez.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm also a founding member of the 50 of the Storms Avenue Block Association, going back many years. I have just 2 issues. For the past 16 years, I've been using the easement on the property on 50 Storms Avenue to get back and forth to the parking lot back of my house. That's also the only way to get access to the basement. So if I need to change the boiler, the water tank, I only have a door in the back to get through it. With the new park, which is a great addition to the neighborhood, my easement is being taken by the new project. And by doing that, it will cut me off on my only way to egress from my parking lot. Jason sent a letter to Commissioner Ward, and I appreciate your feedback and getting back to me. But I believe I have a legit issue with this. If you could just give me my 10 feedback, and if you need access through the easement, like the way it was before, I'm more than glad to continue with. Okay. The other issue is the location of the transformers right in front and next to the entrance of Storms Avenue. The neighbors on the adjacent building, I believe it's 46 Storms Avenue, they're very concerned because in the past we have one transformer, very small transformer, but the noise and the humming 24/7 is really unriveting, and you cannot have a full night's rest with that. And now with the addition of at least 2 big ones, and I believe 3 other small ones, we believe it's a kind of an assault on the senses when it comes to that. One solution would be to place them either on a vault, because usually that's where you place transformers of this capacity, or just move them to the back of the property, right, and back where the garage is. And I believe it's something could be done. I'm also an electrical engineer.
1 minute.
And I think that's all there is to it. Just to consider that right on this project, you affected me personally. I cannot access the back of my property anymore if you approve this plan as it is. So with all due respect, I want you to either put a break on this project until this issue is finally resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hold on, I clicked the wrong person.
Yes, I'm still here.
I switched over Commissioner.
Mr. Harrington, is that a point that you can address when we're done with the public?
Yes, absolutely, because that is an issue that we have vetted and flushed out a while ago to see what the rights were within the public right away.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next we have Ravi. You'll be able to turn your camera on, but before you get started, please state and spell your full name and provide your address, please.
Yes, my name is Ravi Balchand, RAVI BALCHAND, and the address is 209 Summit Avenue.
Okay, Mr. Balchan, would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So, can I start?
Yes.
Okay, so I spoke with Mr. Ward today regarding preservation of notice. I wasn't sure what that meant. He clarified that for me. But also I feel like, the rescheduling of the meetings might have thrown a lot of people off. So, I don't think as many neighbors are on this as they should have been. Also, this is my mom. We've lived there for over the 209 Summit for over 20 years. And Mr. Mila addressed some of the concerns we had regarding the sunlight, the shadow study that they did. However, we're not architects. I'm not an expert in that. So, I was wondering if there's a way since I'm one of the neighbors that's going to be most impacted by this construction, if there's a way to personally reach out and maybe have a separate meetings and address, answer some more questions that we have personally one-on-one. Also, the backyard, my mom is disabled and since 2015, so she can't walk to the park or go in 2017 rather. And she can't go to the park or anything like that. So the only recreation that she gets is going out in the yard. Some of you may not understand that, but this is going to be very impactful to us. The height of the building, Mr. Mila addressed some of it. The sunlight, my mom enjoys gardening. We plant every spring. If someone comes out here, they'll see that. Right now, I don't know when someone came out here, but the backyard that they developed, that they own behind 207 Summit, it's like 12 feet of bush. It's overgrown. No one's ever cleaned it up. So I don't know how much they say they care about the neighbors and the neighbors' concerns, but I could show I have pictures of it. I don't know if I can share my screen. Also, they said they pointed out a few buildings in the neighborhood.
1 minute.
That are going up. Yes, there are other taller buildings in the neighborhood, but if someone comes out, they'll see that the buildings cast shadows all over streets, not on anyone's property. And also, this intersection is a very dangerous intersection with the addition of the garage there. We have seen many accidents in front there, close calls with pedestrians. So I don't know how the garage is going to be opening and closing, if it's going to be remote controlled, but that's a very big concern because we're having cars stop there and then, wait for the garage to open will create even more traffic and hazard to to pedestrians. I live here to seeing it over 20 years, and it's only getting worse and worse. So I think that's all we had to add. And if someone could reach out to me, I'd be grateful for that also.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Andrea. Andrea, you'll be able to turn your camera and audio on. But before you get started, just state and spell your full name and provide your address for the record, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Could you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. And if you can state and spell your full name and provide your address.
Sure. My name is Andrea Spencer. I live at 54 Storms Avenue. And I just wanted to comment that I was initially concerned about the size of the building because of my backyard. But I also realized that if 5 stories is not nearly as bad as some of the things I've seen going up in the neighborhood. And I do like the project's green initiatives, the roof, the green roof, and the underground water collection. And they do offer parking. It's not complete for every tenant, but it is, sorry, my bird. It's a lot more than some other places are offering. Down the block, there was a proposal with no parking, with a lot of units. So as long as they keep to their word about the fence is going to stay up, I've been told, during the construction phase, so nobody will be without fences for long periods of time. I'm inclined to say that I favor the project. But there was one thing I heard mentioned. They talked about parking permits, and I don't believe, at least on Storms Avenue, I don't know, I can't speak for the other streets around here, but there are no parking permits for residents. So they may want to think that through. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next we have Cora. Okay, Cora, you should be able to turn your camera and.
All right, that's my daughter's name.
Oh, okay.
This is Jason Chen.
Would you raise your right hand to be sworn? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state and spell your full name and provide your address?
Jason Shannon, Jason Shannon.
Thank you.
And I'm at 83 Storms Avenue.
Thank you.
So I'm the person who was mentioned earlier about the brick colors. So I guess maybe I'll start with that. I was looking through the application, and I think the renderings, the color tone of the top as a kind of a warm gray looks good. But the material binder, when I looked at the specifications for the brick colors, it really seems like what's specified currently is a very white brick. I went to the company and looked at the brick there. So I just want to make sure that I know the architect said he was open to the gray top for the brick and the red for the majority of the building. That does get followed through with the planner. Besides that, I wanted to say that I'm happy that the 62 and 64 Storms buildings are going to be rehabilitated. I have been on the street for 16 years and I've seen those deteriorate. And I thought they were beyond the point where anyone would find it economical to rehab them, that they were going to be demolished. And really only in a case where a larger developer is using part of that land would it make it feasible to renovate those buildings? So I think in this unique situation where they are going to get fixed up historically, I think that's a good thing for my streets. I know Henry Hernandez at 50 Storms Avenue, and I know there's been discussions about his easement and or the public right of way. Now I'll leave that between the planners. But the one thing I did support that I just want to make sure that the
1 minute.
applicant with the transformers. I mean, really, we don't know if that is an issue until you get the decibel readings or what those transformers might sound like. But please do consider that as people who live there don't want to hear a constant noise. But other than that, I support the project, and I'm glad that it's all brick. I mean, I've never seen a brick building. You know, those are the ones that you want to keep. So I think that's it seems to be designed as something that will.
30 seconds.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next Zoom name is DMO.
Hey, how you doing? I'm sorry, can you hear me? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. My name is David Moore. I live at 16A Storms Avenue, DAVID MOORE.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, what was the address again? Which Storms Avenue?
16A.
16A?
Like an apple, yes.
Thank you. And do you verify that you are who you just stated you are, and that you will consider your testimony as if it was given under oath tonight?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so just briefly, I'm very happy with the 6264 Storms Avenue project, and I'm glad to see that that's going to be renovated. It's been long overdue, and so far everything I've heard about 199 Storms Avenue seems like it makes sense. I also want to piggyback off of the situation for the people at Storms Avenue that have the generator in the back and access to the yard. I would like to also say I need y'all to correct that issue, because that's something that I can relate to. And that's about all I got to say with that.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, and I see one more hand raised, Olivia. Olivia, you should be able to unmute yourself and turn your camera on if possible.
Miss Sue, I think you've unmuted yourself. But we can't hear you or see you.
No.
It doesn't sound like it's working.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a bad internet connection. Why don't you try calling in on the number on the agenda? It's 929-205-6099. And the ID that you have to type in is on the agenda as well. So I don't know if you want to try that.
And then press what? Star
*9.
*9.
I could tell they're trying, but. Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay. Not sure, there's no other hand raised at this time.
Okay. Well, I think we're giving Miss Sue an opportunity to see if she can call in, right? And
Yeah, I just switched them back over though for now, but they
so
should
maybe
still
in
be
the
able.
meantime, Mr. Harrington's team can address some of the questions that were raised. And if anyone from the board has any questions at that time, we can also, get started with that.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Should we officially close the public portion since we're going into it, and then just hold that spot in case she comes back on?
Well, we're not really closing the public portion because we're still allowing more people to call in. There seems to be one person who's having trouble calling in. I don't really want to use it. But Mr. Harrington, if you want to get started, I think there's plenty to address.
Sure, I'll try to address first Mr. Balchan. He asked whether or not there was a way to communicate directly during, the process. Absolutely, my client is open to speaking with everybody in the community, throughout, any process at the site or any construction at the site. But if I could step back to Mr. Hernandez's question, he's at the gentleman that lives at 50 Storms with what he calls an easement. This is an issue that we looked at from the very beginning, because when we looked at this, and if you see the tax map for, I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly, Ingorson Place, you'll see it's only 10 feet wide, and it runs back, and nobody, that it always existed there. It's there on the tax maps. It doesn't have a lot number. So my question initially to our client was, do you own that? You bought all these lots, who owns that? So we did a real deep dive on this, and we got, a title search. We also reached out to the tax assessor's office to see, was it vacated at any time? We couldn't find any vacation of it, because if it had vacated, it would have gone to the respective adjoining property owners. Our title company came to the conclusion that it's a public right of way. We also got confirmation from the assessor's office that it's a public right of way. So while Mr. Hernandez may be using this for access to the back of his house with the car and to the back of his house, it was through the public right of way. So that doesn't mean it can't be addressed. In the event this is approved by the board, our next step we would have to go to the city council to request a franchise ordinance to permit these park improvements here along Ingorson Place. And during that, we could flush out, how access could continue for Mr. Hernandez, certainly, pedestrian access to the back of his property. We wouldn't promote or want to have vehicular access there, because if you see the plan, we certainly don't want a car to be able to go in and out of a proposed park for the neighborhood. And it really does upset the scheme there. So that is something that we have fleshed out. We have spoken to the assessor's office, and we've been advised by our title company and the city that it is a public right of way. But that, again, it does not mean that we can't accommodate Mr. Hernandez through access through maybe a fence in the back, so he can access his back basement. you know, and we can speak to him about parking arrangements as well, possibly, you know, a parking spot in the garage that he could use so that he's not put out, if you will. And as to the transformers, I'm going to punt that over to Mr. Malia just to speak to that. I mean, it's, you know, we don't see it as a noise issue. They're very quiet. They will be surrounded with walls to also inhibit any noise, possible, you know, possible annoyances. But maybe Adrian, if you could just speak to, you know, the transformers and why it's there.
Well, usually it's the utility company that have specific requirements about where they want to place these things. And, you know, that's why they're so close to the right of way. We would like them to be further back, but they're going to have to be that close to Storms Avenue as dictated by PSE&G. With regard to the noise, I can say that the later models of these transformers are much quieter than the older ones. But in order to provide some tangible information to the board, I suggest that we just provide literature as a condition of approval that they meet, you know, Jersey City Department of Engineering standards or something to that effect that will give the neighbors some sense that we're actually going to comply with the standard. I mean, there are standards for sound on these things. They can't be super loud. There's obviously noise ordinances for Jersey City, but I think that the most appropriate thing to do is to provide the board with the right literature that the Department of Engineering can review. And if that's made a condition of approval, then I think that we'll all be on the same page with regard to how that sound issue was addressed.
You know, I think that's, I think we've addressed the comments, and just to confirm that we agree with Mr. Shannon's comments with regard to the brick color, and as Mr. Melia mentioned earlier, we would certainly accommodate that change and make that change to make the building look better.
Any other points that you want to address at this point?
I don't think so. I think we've addressed them.
Okay. And were you able to connect? I think a couple of the neighbors wanted to connect with you one-on-one. Is that something that you accommodate?
Could we connect one-on-one and discuss yeah, any construction issues? Absolutely. I know my client has already, you know, over the last, you know, year or two, he's been doing that. He's reached out to neighbors. Some have responded, some haven't. So they're absolutely open to communicating with the neighbors.
And to do so, should they just reach out to you directly?
Yeah, they can reach out to me, and I'll put them in touch directly with my client.
Okay, great. Lindsay, is Miss Sue ready? Did she give up?
I see now 2 names listed as Olivia, so I guess I'll just promote them both. Maybe they're on a computer and a phone. So let's see what happens. 1 second. Okay.
Hello? Here, baby.
Yes.
Come speak here.
Miss Sue,
I'm coming in under Olivia's Zoom wasn't working for me. I apologize.
yeah, I can't hear that clearly, whoever is.
You are not talking. Come here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
You know.
You need to speak into here.
Okay.
You need to mute one of your devices.
I muted one of them. Can you unmute the device that you're in front of, sir?
Hi, how about now?
You're echoing.
Okay, shut all the phones off, Olivia. My apologies.
You echoing.
Hi. I need that. Hi there.
Maybe you can mute one of the devices you're either watching or listening from. That's probably it.
Olivia, shut that phone off.
I think it's a little better now.
Okay, my apologies again. I reside at 19 Crawford Street. My name is Anthony Desabota, ANTHONY, DESABOTA.
Okay, and Mr. DeSabota, do you verify that you are as stated you are, and that you will consider the testimony you give tonight as if it was under oath?
I do.
Okay, and you said 19 Crawford Street, correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Hi. Just a few notes, in no particular order. One, there was a recent May 11, 2021, 5-0 vote by the Jersey City Planning Board in regards to 665-669 Grand Street project, being much smaller in footprint and size. I was trying to find the P and the Z code for it, but I couldn't. It's 665-669 Grand Street. Planning Board Chair Christopher Langston voiced apprehension about vehicles waiting on Grand Street for the driveway's electric garage door to open, as well as concerns with parking and lack of retail parking. This was the main reason, from what I could find on Google searches, for the 5-0 vote from the Planning Board. With our situation, the triangle area in front of 199-201 today is congested just from folks stopping to play lotto at the existing deli located on the property. Can you just imagine the perils to pedestrians, residents, and children, along with people driving, if this building were to be approved and the electronic driveway was there and everyone had to wait for the driveway door to open and close from both directions, coming from Bergen Avenue, from Summit, and there's this tiny little road there with a pizzeria. All that area is very busy, and it would just be a nightmare, I think, with everyone waiting to get into the garage. Point number 2. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm not too concerned about parking. I have a lot, but I believe in addition to everyone's concerns about overflow of parking, I believe the demand for parking by visitors is going to be even more of a problem. Guests, Amazon, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all this stuff comes into play, especially to a building of this size, and especially with 1-bedrooms and studios, which is mostly going to be young people.
1 minute.
The navigation of these streets and sidewalk for pedestrians, residents, or children is going to be extremely difficult and hazardous for all. Street traffic is already heavy and parking tight. Crawford Street right now is a one-way dead-end street and has been so for decades. To put a secondary entrance there is going to allow people from the building to abuse their right to that secondary entrance, I believe, and use it for drop-offs and making U-turns on the block. And last but not least,
30 seconds.
Last but not least, construction noise. How long is this going to take? Is it going to be 2 years? There's an underground parking lot. There's a senior building 50 feet away from the project, 9 stories high, that you guys used in your first presentation to say that it should be approved because there's a 9-story building there. That should be greatly considered. Has anyone talked to these senior citizens? That's it. And thank you very much. And if it all plans out, I hope to do have a good neighbor, but we should take a look at this again.
Thank you very much.
Time.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised from the public.
Thank you, Lindsay. We'll close the public portion of this application. Mr. Harrington, I didn't know if there was any additional points raised by that individual that you wanted to address.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we've addressed the traffic in the parking garage. It will be accessible so that you'll you can hit a code and it'll be, you know, the door will rise and it'll open as you go into it. You know, Mr. Melia can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's, we don't see this as an issue. And I mean, the 665, 669 Grand Street is, I don't know if you're aware of it. I am. It's kind of apples and oranges. That's right off of Communipaw, not Communipaw, I'm sorry. Grand Street down by Johnston Avenue. So it's a, you know, I don't think that's analogous here.
Okay. Does anyone from the board have any questions at this time?
I
Yes,
just have one quick one, please. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim, go ahead.
okay. Mr. Harrington,
Yes.
you're kind of a mind reader because I was thinking about the maintenance of the park. And you said the owner would be responsible for the maintenance and the playground?
Yes, everything in perpetuity.
Okay, what happens if they sell the building? Same thing?
It runs with the land. Yes,
Okay.
anybody who owns it. Yes.
Also, I think I heard you say that you would have a parking space in the development for Mr. Hernandez?
We could accommodate that. Yes.
Okay,
If that's something that he would like, we can accommodate that.
okay, at no charge. Thank
I think so. I'm gonna make the executive decision there for my client.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Green, did you have any other questions?
that's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question to Mr. Malia. I just wanted to know, I know he mentioned that he was gonna give out pamphlets and just to show how public service is their guidelines as far as the generators and the noise. But I'm still concerned about, you know, people are not being able to sleep at night with that noise, because I know after a while, even as they get older, they start making a lot of noise. Is there any way that can have some kind of enclosure so that it can avoid having any noise at all?
So they come in a sound enclosure, and the technology is better than it has been. But in order to give you like a tangible, it's going to be, you know, X amount of decibels. I mean, I could give you an approximate range, but I suggest that we defer to Jersey City Engineering to review the actual decibel level and make sure that they are okay with it, as opposed to just say it will be, you know, comparable to, you know, casual street noise. It's just challenging to quantify it for you, because I would like to have the documentation, to submit the proper documentation, and have, you know, someone in Jersey City Engineering and you know, review it to their satisfaction that it's actually not going to be a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner McCormick, did you have questions?
Forget about it.
Okay. Does anyone else from the board have any questions?
I have a few.
Okay.
Okay. And actually, this is back to the transformer issue. Again, I completely understand where the applicant is coming from and the suggestion to provide literature, leave this issue in the hands of engineering. But one of the things Mr. Hernandez asked about was the possibility of relocating the transformers. And I just bring this up because let's just be mindful that this is an R1 neighborhood. And if you do put in significant development in an R1 neighborhood, there is definitely noise pollution that comes from transformers, no matter how up to date they are. But is there any way you could consider relocating it closer to the main building?
Adrian,
So I did mention earlier that we're a little bit at the mercy of PSE&G. They dictate where they go. Our preference would be to have them out of sight, not in our park, but they don't really care about aesthetics or what makes sense. They just want them as close to the right of way as possible.
Okay.
And so, you know, typically, you know, we have to design the project around their requirements and not the other way around. But if there
Okay.
was any way that we could move them further back, we certainly, you know, would entertain it. There's no reason we would not want them to be further away from the right of way.
Okay. My other question was, you know, one of the real positive aspects of the project is the small park. Was originally explained that it would, you know, primarily have a playground for small children and that sort of thing. But right adjacent to that, you have your right of way for emergency vehicles. Have you given any thought into how you're going to manage safety for a park full of toddlers when the only ingress for like fire engines and emergency vehicles is kind of right through the park?
If you want me to respond to this, I mean, you know, we envision those instances where an emergency vehicle will be coming onto the site as few and far between, like a fire truck.
Yes.
You know, it happens, like a smoke detector goes off or something, but you know, not frequently in a building of this, you know, scale where the equipment is a little more savvy in terms of like someone not, you know, cooking, setting off their smoke alarm. I don't know that that would necessarily trigger, you know, a full-on deluge of fire engines onto the site. Similarly, you know, the ambulances.
Well, then if they didn't use that, how would the emergency vehicles go to the site?
Well, the garage, I can say that, you know, the garage entry from Summit is tall enough to potentially accommodate, you know, like smaller ambulances, like van ambulances.
Okay.
So that's one other way that they could access the site. But we just, with regard to, you know, your initial question is, you know, have we thought about having a park near this emergency vehicle? We just don't see it as an issue where, you know, they obviously have sirens blaring. So I think there's ample time for people to, you know, move out of the way of an emergency vehicle
In
in
no,
the event that occurred.
And how is the park demarcated and enclosed?
There's a gate on the property line that the applicant will maintain in terms of closing and opening the park.
Okay.
And then obviously there's a fence enclosure around the entire site perimeter. So access to the park is essentially only through the building when that gate is closed.
And if I could add to you, you also have emergency access to the building from Crawford Street. So while this you can access it from here on Storms Avenue, the building also does front on Crawford.
Yeah. Now I'm just I'm very familiar with the area, and that one thing that's very interesting about the whole project is, for anybody that's done a lot of driving in the area around the old medical center, you can take a right-hand turn and all of a sudden you can really kind of get stuck, and it can be very difficult to get out of there. So I just did have concerns that, you know, it seemed that this emergency lane off of Storms was going to kind of be a solution for that impenetrability problem, but it's adjacent to a park for little kids, which is one of the big benefits of the project. And just by saying that would be infrequent, you know, in when you're doing kind of a risk assessment, yes, infrequency brings the risk down, but then you look at the proposed use, and there are a lot of higher risk factors. So I just, there are just aspects of that I just find a little confusing.
I think I'm just thinking out loud too. We could possibly reach out to the Jersey City Fire Department, or emergency services, and kind of have a sit down and discuss if they have ideas. I'm sure they're absolutely more experienced in a situation like this where they may have to access an area where pedestrians would be, and instead of us trying to think of something, let's talk to the people that do this every day.
Yeah, and I think you have a firehouse close by at, what is it, Duncan and Bergen? Okay. Then my other question was for Mr. Height, and it has to do with height. So in your presentation, you did talk about how there are other buildings that have significant height in the neighborhood, but they were the Beacon, which is, our former medical center and Art Deco masterpiece. That's not a good comparison. Senior citizen housing, that's not a good comparison. Because that's positive criteria all over the place. And then the number 28 annex, which is a completely different kind of use. Can you speak to any other relatively high density examples in the area?
And I'll have to swear you in, Charles. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state your name for the record.
Yes, Charles Height, last name spelled H-E-Y-D-T.
Thank you.
So I am, I can pull up the exhibit that we prepared, but.
I'm sorry, Charles, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. You have some static in here.
Okay, can you hear me now if I'm closer?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me mute too.
So I did bring up those buildings. In terms of building height, it reflects the building mass. And I know the uses are different and the Beacon is the Beacon, but I felt it was warranted given right at the frontage of Summit, the Beacon sits at that intersection. It's part of the eastern component of that intersection. So given that proximity, I thought it was warranted to reference. And we will be substantially lower than those buildings. I'm not trying to suggest that we're close or anything. We will be substantially lower. We did do a density analysis, which I can bring up. There are many other properties that have similar multifamily use and densities in the area, but candidly, many of them are lower, 4 stories and 3 stories. So that's one of the reasons why we felt it appropriate to provide those substantial setbacks. Mr. Amelia discussed tonight the benefits of doing that in terms of providing the additional light and air and reducing the shadow impacts. So that's really where we landed in terms of trying to balance the impact of the added height, if that helps.
And if I could add, I don't recall if Mr. Height pointed it out, but this board actually approved a project for 78 Storms, which is directly to the north. A couple of years ago, my client just contacted me about a month ago to request an extension due to the pandemic, but that's 6 stories. I think it's 66 feet. In relation to this project, on the north side of the property line, you have the church and the backyard, and then 78 Storms. It's a flag lot, kind of a little unique property, if any of the board members remember that. But So that is in the immediate area. Yeah, that's right there. So that's at 66 feet and 6 stories.
And this was the exhibit that we prepared. It was part of the testimony at the last hearing.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions at this? Have any questions? Staff? Do you want to go through the count? Sorry.
Sorry, are you talking to me,
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah,
Okay,
your
you seem to be
mic's in
breaking
and
up.
out, Josh. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did we close public? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I'm just going to remind the board that this application, there's actually 2 cases here. So if the board moves forward with making motions on these applications, remember there's 2. We provided the commissioners and the applicant with a staff memo dated April 19th, 2021. And in that report, which is 10 pages, we go we give a background of the property, which I'll just touch on a tiny bit here. It is a rather large site at 56,737 square feet. It is a combination of 16 existing lots that shares lot lines with 31 different parcels. It's a very irregular, as you've seen on some of the maps in their presentation tonight and the previous meeting. The other unusual factor about this application is Ingeworson Place, which was brought up and discussed a bit tonight. We received the email from Mr. Shannon and on behalf of Mr. Hernandez at 50 Storms Avenue, which in our research, we discovered that 50 Storms Avenue was once the home of a person named Ingeworson, who platted the land behind them and developed it as a muse that were demolished in the 60s. The small alley or carriageway is 10 feet wide and spreads out to 15 feet at the rear. With the question that came up from Mr. Shannon, we did reach out to the tax assessor's office and affirm the same findings that Mr. Harrington put on the record, that it is in fact a right-of-way. That this application, should they move the board approve it, that one of the conditions that the staff is recommending, there's actually 2. That's on page 7 of the staff memo. Condition 8 and 9 refer to the improvements of Ingeworson Place, franchise ordinance related to Ingeworson Place, as well as because the access road that they are designing for emergency and I guess in lieu of keeping that right away existing, shifts onto their private property, and the playground itself is on private property, that public access be included and thought of there as well. Moving back a little bit in my memo, I just want to reiterate the variances that were put on the record and made part of this application. So regarding the subdivision, there's a D variance for an expansion of a non-conforming use and a C variance for a rear yard setback. Regarding the site plan, the D variances are use. We asked them to, which some argue assumes the height. We asked them to call out the height as well as a variance and put reasoning on the record for that, as well as an expansion of non-conforming use related to the Storms Avenue buildings. The C variances on the site plan are exterior loading space, curb cut width, minimum drive aisle width, and signage, because they do have a small mixed use component on the Summit Avenue building. They made clear that this application, in addition to them building out that area as a park and maintaining it and giving public access, that they are including 10 units of income restricted housing for moderate income households. And it was put on the record at the first meeting that those units, even though they may have designated them on their site plans, that those are to be the unit mix, and which units in the the 4 buildings are to be approved by and determined by the Division of Affordable Housing. And I believe Mr. Harrington put on the record that they recognize that. All right. I think with that, I just wanted to shift to the going back to the conditions and just ask the applicant if they have had time to review the memo, the conditions therein, and would agree should a motion be made to approve this application.
Yes,
they
we
would
would.
comply.
Yes, we would.
All right. I think with that, I would just open it up to the commissioners. Should they have any questions for me?
Just one question, please, Matt. The new conditions, they're agreeable to the new conditions that were discussed earlier in this conference?
So I don't know if the commissioners clarified what things that they possibly wanted to ask the applicant to include. So one was excavating more space and creating 6 additional parking spaces. I believe that they made clear that they will be doing a 2 brick color scheme. I know that they put on the record that they wouldn't do any parking permits here. I could speak to that. There is in an area where there is parking permits required for apartment buildings that have off-street parking, they actually have to prove that the parking is fully utilized before anyone would qualify for a parking permit. However, as I believe a neighbor put on the record that there's no parking permits here on this area or on the street or several streets. So that wouldn't apply, but should it become a permit parking area, that ordinance, I would assume, would be in effect. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. What I was thinking was, my thought was about one condition that was being mentioned was the possibility with, I believe it was Mr. Hernandez's property with the parking for him.
Yeah, we would agree as a condition, if approved and as part of an application to the city council for a franchise ordinance, that we would request that Mr. Hernandez have access to his rear yard through our property or the right of way, and that our client would provide him a parking space within the garage at no charge.
Thank you. That was my concern, make sure that condition was cleared. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Ward.
Matt, there's a lot here. Are you able to kind of synthesize what the positive criteria is for this application?
Thank you for that.
Sure. So on page 3, we go into a little bit more detail regarding 64, 66 storms. So in the staff memo, we broke it down by I guess what you could call the 2 major components or projects. So regarding the 64, 66 storms, I'll just direct you to the bold text that's highlighted at the bottom of page 3. So we just referenced that the applicant is proposing to restore the facades of 64, 66 Storms Avenue, repair existing windows and doors, repair existing enclosed front porch, repair the existing front yard fencing, reestablish the fence line along the front lot lines, and improve the facade in a manner that is sensitive to in keeping with preservation goals. Therefore, the restoration of the existing 3 family structures would satisfy that justification with regard to their D2 variance. I guess would assume on both the subdivision and the site plan, since we're kind of bringing these in tandem. So the applicant, I think tonight, addressed to our staff satisfaction the work that they're going to be doing. And they put on the record the cost of those on the request of the commissioners. Regarding 199 Summit Avenue, the 2 larger multifamily mixed-use buildings, they have the D1 use variance, which is both, I would say, the multifamily and the small retail. There is an existing non-conforming use and right next door to this property, which includes a bodega, which was mentioned by one of the speakers here tonight, the residences. So that could, I think in keeping with that context, the applicant can make an argument. And regarding their D6 variance, this is a regular sized lot in the R1. So I believe that they could rely on some on an argument there. But let me flip through my staff report here. So we summarized some of the particular the design that they incorporated into their building. So they are, as put on the record, they're trying to pull back portions of the building, and in particular the upper portions of the building from the lot line, anywhere from 10 to 20 feet in most areas that don't front on a major right-of-way. It was hard to a little bit calculate the density, so I think they came to a units per acre of 120, while we counted 140. I think perhaps we weren't counting the lot that includes the transformers, which is incorporated to the open space. Let me just go along. So regarding the D1 use variance, we do reference the purpose of the MLUL, although I think that maybe some of the commissioners' questions could call this into question. This to secure safety from fire, flood, panic, and other natural man-made disasters. I think certainly the architect would attest that they're going to be compliant with building code. It should be a safe building, and that this is a continued effort to stabilize and upgrade residential neighborhoods. So we have a property that is not in use. It has been previous to this, it was a school and the temporary offices for the HHS. It is temporary structures, and the building on Storm was in disrepair, which they are fixing as a part of this application. And I'm not sure where else you want me to go, commissioners. I feel like I'm running through my long staff report here and without much aim.
I guess my concern is that I'm trying to convince myself that this isn't rezoning by variance, because this is quite a bit of density. It's also irregular by design. They bought it that way. So you can actually extract a little bit of of this not having, imposing of being positive criteria because it's irregular, but they bought up a lot of parcels that made it irregular. So I don't know if I'm completely convinced along those lines.
Yeah, in our research on the site, it appears as though it looks like the site at one point was perhaps, well, we spoke to the fact that Ingeworson Place and the Muse behind 50 Storms was once one property. The two properties on Storms Avenue were 200 feet deep. And then the remainder of it, which is 199 Summit Avenue, I guess, and you can include the Muse property, has been that assemblage for quite some time. I didn't go and confirm that date, but it has been an assembly for quite some time. So really, I would say the only lots that they perhaps added to this application, which were separate and distinct before maybe the last 10 to 20 years, were the 64, 62
The historic
Storms.
building.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful.
And and those Muse were demolished in the 60s.
Okay.
So it's been quite a large and irregular site for a long time.
Okay.
I'm trying to visualize, how do you access the playground?
It's my understanding that the access is from Storms Avenue. There is a paved walk with reinforced lawn on either side, landscaping that leads you back behind some of the lots that front on Storms Avenue, and that's where our playground will be located.
Okay. And I probably am way oversimplifying it. I think, Matt, what I was thinking was that the positive criteria is that we're proposing, they're proposing that they're providing a playground accessible to the community as number one, and number two, that they're restoring a couple of buildings that they're rehabilitating instead of demolishing and destroying. And that in doing those two things, they're asking for some greater density than R1 zoning. And they're providing a good amount of parking. I think that's what I was thinking. I don't know, Kate, if you had any additional thoughts.
Yeah, and there's also the moderate income housing.
Right.
And
okay.
that's certainly in the, that's certainly legitimate positive criteria since this is before the ordinance. But also the other thing about the park being the big bonus, it's still completely controlled, by the private owner. If we do approve this, I would like to see kind of a little bit more firm detail about how that's going to be managed and maintained. There were quite a few questions about maintaining the park.
If I could add, as Matt mentioned in his conditions, proposed conditions, that we would have to provide an easement for the public to access that and use it. That would be presented to the city council to accept that easement. So those details could be spelled out and in that easement.
Yeah.
So Kate, were you thinking along the lines of that, if there's, and I think that a couple of people from the members of the neighborhood group spoke, and that they would, in partnership with the developer, plan on how the park would be maintained so that it wouldn't just be entirely maintained by the private developer, but that the community would have input into that. Is that what you were thinking?
No, I just want to make sure that it is an enforceable condition, that when, the swing set breaks, that it's going to be fixed. And that, they're not going to be replacing the kiddie sprinkler system with a garden hose. So I would like to, because it's not like it's a gigantic park either. It's a strip, and it has stormwater retention underneath it. So if we're going to be buying into this because this is such a great thing, well then let's kind of beef this up a little bit.
Yeah, and we could provide as a condition of approval that we stated earlier that the park will be, maintained in perpetuity by the owner of the property, which, means maintaining the equipment, maintaining the grounds. And we'd work in conjunction with the Jersey City Parks Department as to their rules and regulations on the park. Because I think earlier there was a mention of a fence along Storms Avenue. I don't believe that's the proposal. I think we have bollards there. So it wouldn't be accessed,
Okay.
just opening and closing a fence. It would be open all the time. So that you don't have, the super waking up at 8 o'clock and opening the fence to the public.
Right. Okay. Although flipping that on its head, that also means that if you have to use it for emergency ingress, like a little kid could run out of the park, and get by the bollard. So I mean, it goes both ways, but I don't know.
Right.
But actually, to that point, Chuck, because it is a very good point, having the condition, you're going to work through it, maintained in perpetuity. But for the folks from the city staff, in particular Matt, then how would that piece be enforced?
Well, it's part of their approval. So if they fall out of compliance, it could be a zoning violation. But they are one of the condition, or two of the conditions relate to the park more specifically, which is they need to get a franchise to maintain the city right-of-way with the improvements that they're showing here. And then there's also going to be the agreement for the public access. And that's going to be their private property. So I would say that there's also an opportunity for us to review, inspect, and issue violations if necessary.
Right, and as part of the franchise ordinance application and the easement that's required as the proposed condition, that easement agreement would have specific provisions that would require the owner to maintain this. And when we apply to the city council for a franchise, it gets distributed to all the directors, all the divisions within the city. So they all have eyes on it before it gets to the council and they can comment on it.
Okay. And even though it may be implied, but to use your words, Chuck, for condition 8, then for the last sentence, the details of the franchise ordinance shall include the continued maintenance of the in worsened place improvements in perpetuity. Just add those words.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any anything they want to add, discuss?
You're not interested in, while I can still ask this, interested in adding any further moderate income housing units or low income housing units?
No, we looked at this. We thought this was a good amount. It's kind of, it's a mix of all the positive criteria with the park and the historic restoration and the units. And we we initially thought about workforce housing, and planning requested that we do moderate.
Okay. And that again is, and which of the conditions is that?
That
Because
is,
it's 10 out of 172 units.
That's right.
it falls under conditions 6 and 7. So we reference that they comply with chapter 188, with the exception that they are doing all moderate as they're proposing. That is for the commissioners to review and consider. And then 7, which is the applicant shall enter an affordable housing agreement with the Division of Affordable Housing. And that's how the Division of Affordable Housing is tasked with the continued certification and inspection of those.
Okay, but where, and it's my ignorance on this, but where does it, in the presentation, they said it was 10 of the 172 units.
Right. So and this is very new, and I think that we're going to be having a presentation to the zoning board soon on inclusionary zoning ordinance.
Yes, yeah.
And the Division of Affordable Housing.
Yes, except this
Yeah.
predates that.
True.
Right.
But
Right. And so don't we need to get more specific about the actual number of units that are expected in the approval conditions?
Well, they're saying it's 10, and it's to be approved. The affordable housing agreement is to be approved by the Division of Affordable Housing, and we're tasking, or they're tasked with assessing.
This, I'm asking a dumb question. Where's the 10 written down?
That's part of our application.
Okay,
So
thanks.
that will be in the body of any approval.
Okay.
We can provide as a condition as well that the applicant shall provide 10 moderate affordable, units. And then it will be the mix of that and the location that will be discussed with the Division of Affordable Housing, Jersey City.
Commissioner, we'll make sure that in any resolution that comes out of this, that will make that 10 will be referenced.
At least 10. Yeah. Okay.
At least 10.
Okay. Anything else we should discuss? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion on Z20-041 for approval with all the staff conditions.
Second.
On a motion made and seconded on for a motion to approve, Commissioner Brown.
Now, before we
Yes.
vote, can you clarify what we're voting on and whether we're voting on these two
Right.
things?
So that was a motion made on the subdivision, and I would say that we should just condition the subdivision on the approval of the site plan. Does that make sense?
No.
Everyone?
I think if I may, I think we're voting on two different subjects. Two different
Properties.
properties right now. Right. We're voting on the first one, which I just made the motion for, is 199 Summit.
Summit.
No, that's incorrect. It is an application for a subdivision, and then an application for the site plan for both 199 Summit and 6264 Storms. It is quite confusing, I understand.
No, but it's listed as two different items on the agenda. And we thought from last meeting that we were voting on them as two separate things.
That's correct.
That's correct.
One is a subdivision and one is a site plan. It's not the two different addresses.
Right.
Yeah.
So Commissioner Palmer, case 041 that you just made the motion on, that's for the proposed subdivision of existing 16 lots to create 5 new lots.
Right.
For development. The next application is 042, and that's for the site project itself.
Exactly.
Is that correct, Matt?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So the first motion you made and was seconded was that by Commissioner Green?
Yes.
That's for the subdivision, so let's vote on that, Matt.
Okay. On a motion to approve, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Patel,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Araujo,
Yes.
Commissioner McCormick,
Yes. Yes.
Vice Chair Donnelly,
Yes.
and Chairman Jacobs.
Yes.
Motion carries, all in favor.
Does anyone want to make a motion on the next one?
Make a motion on Z20-042 with staff conditions.
Second.
Okay, on a motion to approve with staff conditions, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Patel,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Araujo,
Yes.
Commissioner McCormick,
Yes.
Vice Chair Donnelly.
Yes, but applicant, please do me a favor, because I forgot I had this as a condition, and just make sure that you talk to, the local fire chief about ingress and egress and figure something out. So I'll sleep better. Thanks. Good luck.
And Chairman Jacobs.
Yes, and I do note that, some of the commissioners talked about and raised questions about the credibility of some of the studies that were done to compare the density of this proposed property to some of the other nearby properties. This is a mixed use area. I do think that looking at the historic hospital, which is the beacon, industrial buildings.
I'm sorry, Josh, you're breaking up and I can't hear you. I do think that looking at,
I think that this is another area where while this may be zoned R1, that there is close proximity to within a few blocks of some large structures that are considerably larger than what's been proposed. There are also structures that are commercial or industrial in nature. And I think that it is appropriate to have, again, a mixed type of development structure in this immediate area. And deviating from R1 is not really a deviation from the Jersey City plan in this area.
You vote yes. Yes.
I voted yes at the beginning. Sorry.
Yes. Good. Great.
All right, the motion carries 7-0, all in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Project.
I
Bridget,
think
Bridget, do you want to take a break?
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we take a break, I will just say to those listening in, the next one, so I don't miss it. Yeah, so the next case on will be 22-24 Bergen Avenue, and we will get back on the record in 5 minutes. So everyone, please try to be on around as close to 8:50 as you can be. Thank you.
Don't start without me. I'm going to have to break down and reset up somewhere else. Did you get the, Really?
I'll carry your machine. I won't drive it downstairs.
Please don't.
Who's here? Anybody I know?
Everybody you know.
Man, Ahmed, you're a good man sticking around for that.
Thank you. It was fun watching the video.
Thanks, Bridget. We're going to proceed with case Z20-051. Attorney is Mr. Harrington again. And just so it's clear for the record, Commissioner Brown left the meeting, and Commissioner Shadid will be a voting member for the rest of the board meeting.
Thank you.
Are you waiting on me or?
You're Mr. Harrington, whenever you're ready.
Thanks. So for the record, Charles Harrington of Connell Foley on behalf of the applicant. There were notices submitted in connection with this application.
First, did we call the case? This is case Z20-051. The applicant is 22-24 Bergen Avenue LLC. Yes, so Mr. Harrington, for the record, we do have your notices, your affidavit, proof of service, notice of publication, and Bridget, we're going to mark that A1 for this application.
Okay, so this will be A1 for this application, A1.
And Mr. Harrington, you agree to have your witnesses sworn in remotely, correct?
Yes, we do.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So the project before you tonight is proposing 16 residential units, 8 parking spaces. The property is in the R3 zone. It's on Bergen Avenue, and it's the portion of Bergen Avenue that starts to join in or change into Kennedy Boulevard, if you will, on the southern portion of Kennedy Boulevard in Jersey City. So the property is in the R3 zone, and a little unique nature, I guess, of this application before you is that the R3 permits multifamily homes or mid-rise apartments on lots that are 6,000 square feet or more. This one is just slightly under, it's 5,621 feet. So what the R3 zoning does, it permits townhouses there on lots that size. Townhouses by definition are also multifamily buildings, but they are maxed out at 4 units. So we are asking for a couple of variances here. We're asking for a use variance to permit the multifamily home, if you will, that's envisioned by the R3 zone, even though the townhouse is a multifamily use as well. But we're asking for a density variance to permit the 16 units. And we're asking for that, although we don't reach that 6,000 square feet to get into that staggered zoning, if you will, in the R3. We are asking for a density variance to permit the 16 units. Based upon the existing lot size, you're probably, I think you're looking at eight residential units. There are a number of bulk variances that will be requested as part of the application as well. And I have 2 witnesses. I have Raul Cavato, which will address the application, and then our Sam Bellamy is our planner. So with that said, I'm going to, Raul's up here.
Okay, I'm looking for you, Raul. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state and spell your name for the record.
Raul Cabato, C-A-B-A-T-O.
Thank you.
And before proceeding to, I just know for the record, we did present this to the local, the Councilwoman Ridley, and she did organize a community meeting as well. I don't know if any of the public is here tonight, but we did present. So with that said, Mr. Cabato, Mr. Cabato's been qualified in the past.
Mr. Cabato's qualifications.
Thank
And
you.
my license is current. Good evening, commissioners. Let me just share my screen. Can everybody see the screen? Cool.
Yes.
Yes. So the project shall be located in an R3 zoning district with a lot area of 5,621.67 square feet. Proposed shall be a 5-story, 49-foot high structure with a total gross area of approximately 21,815 square feet. The proposed structure shall be built to the front property line. There shall be a 15.5-foot rear yard setback. Portions of the structure shall be built to the side property line. And portions shall be set back 3 foot 1 inch on either side. On the upper residential floors, the structure shall be set back 25 feet from the rear property line, while the stair enclosure shall maintain the 15.5-foot setback. There are 2 existing street trees in the front of the building that are to remain and shall be maintained. The 775 square foot rear yard shall also be landscaped. A look at the zoning comparison chart shows that we are requesting 8 variances: minimum lot area, front yard setback, rear yard setback on the upper floors, side yard setback on the upper floors, maximum building coverage, parking, and landscaping. Sheet A100 shows the proposed building. It shall consist of 8 parking spaces on the first floor, of which 1 space shall be for handicap parking. Also located on the first floor shall be various utility and meter rooms, bike parking for at least 6 bikes, a charging station for electric scooters, a refuse area, and a sprinkler pump room. Sheet A101 shows a typical floor. There are 16 dwelling units that are being proposed from the 2nd through the 5th floors. Each floor consists of 2 2-bedroom units and 2 1-bedroom units. A typical A-type apartment is 2 bedrooms, and it shall be about 983 square feet in area. A typical B-type apartment is 1 bedroom and shall be about 757.39 square feet in area. A typical C-type bedroom C-type unit shall have 1 bedroom and is about 789.5 square feet in area. And a typical D-type unit shall have 2 bedrooms, and it shall be 816 square feet in area. Note that it does have a balcony in the rear. On sheet A104, proposed that the roof shall be a 1,405.6 square foot rooftop deck, which shall be an amenity space for the occupants. There shall also be 568 square feet of green roof element toward the front roof deck and 110 square feet in the area adjacent to the rear stair. The green roof elements consist of self-draining plant trays. This particular system was selected for its ease of installation, reasonable cost, and easy maintenance. The modular nature of the system ensures that replacing parts become effortless. The benefits include stormwater management, reduction of the heat island effect, reduction of energy usage, noise reduction, in addition to the visual and aesthetic benefits. Also, on the roof would be condensing units for the units below, with planters acting as buffers. Planters also act to define the path to the rear, to and from the rear roof deck to the stair. Details of the green roof elements can be found on sheet A304, which is right here.
Mr. Gabata, I don't see it on the plans, but we are going to have on-site detention as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. And going to the primary facade, fronting Bergen Avenue, consists mainly of brick, the finish of which we have a sample. It's a reddish brick. The oriel windows, copings, as well as cornices shall be clad in metal, of which we also have a sample right here, as well as the windows. Exposed areas of the sides of the structure, as well as the rear facade, shall be clad primarily of fiber cement siding. So this area right here and these areas would be fiber cement siding. That concludes my presentation.
Any questions for Mr. Gabata?
Can we keep all questions to the end of the
Oh, sorry,
presentation?
I'm sorry. My bad. So, yeah, then I'm going to jump right into Mr. Bellamy, who will address our requested variances.
Bridget, do you want to swear in Mr. Bellamy?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And state and spell your full name for the record, please.
Samuel Bellamy, last name Bellamy.
Thank you.
And I believe Mr. Bellamy has been qualified before this board in the past. I know I've worked with him at board
Yes.
meetings.
Yes.
Yes, we accept Mr. Bellamy's qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bellamy, do you have an exhibit you want us to mark as part of your presentation?
Sure, I think it was submitted and is available on the portal, but we can mark it. I'll bring it up now.
We'll mark this as A2.
Okay. A2 for this application. And just identify it for the record, please.
This is a density analysis prepared by our firm Dresner Robin, dated May 11th, 2021. And just for the record, my license is current and in good standing as well. So really what we want to do with this density analysis will really set the basis for my testimony tonight. As Mr. Harrington mentioned, we are in the R3 district. We are requesting a density variance. We're proposing 16 units, which calculates as a density of 123 units per acre, where a maximum of 60 units per acre is permitted. So what we did was look at the Bergen corridor here and to really get a basis of what the existing density of the corridor was. So to familiarize the board with the site, it's outlined here in red between Woodlawn Avenue and Armstrong Avenue, just north of the intersection with JFK Boulevard. We are in the R3 district, which really runs here all the way along Bergen Avenue, running north. To the east here is MLK Drive, and along there is the Jackson Hill redevelopment plan. And just south at this intersection is the R3 district. So what we did find, and you could see photographed here, and some of the properties photographed here, we did find that there were 16 properties in the study area that were similar densities to what we are proposing. The units range from 7 to 32 units with an average of 22 units. The lot sizes range from anywhere from 3,049 square feet to 10,123 square feet, with an average of 6,336 square feet. So we are slightly below that average lot size. And as Mr. Harrington mentioned, we are requesting a C bulk variance for that lot size, where 6,000 square feet is required for mid-rise multifamily buildings in the R3 district. So with these properties, the densities range from 78 units per acre to 214 units per acre, and that they had an average of 137 units per acre. To really narrow this down more, to get it really more focused on some of the smaller lot sizes that are even more comparable to what we are proposing. We did find that 7 of those 16 properties, so approximately 44%, were under 6,000 square feet. Out of those properties, with a lesser lot area under 6,000 square feet, they did have a lesser density at approximately 127 units per acre. So what we're proposing, 16 units on a approximately 5,622 square foot lot, calculates a density of 123 units per acre. So really right at that average density that we did find for those smaller lots that are comparable to what we're proposing. So I do find that the site is appropriately and well suited for this proposed mid-rise multifamily building. And I do find that the site can accommodate these impacts associated with the greater density with that permitted by ordinance. So moving on from this density analysis of the intensity of development along this Bergen Avenue corridor, we then looked at establishing a building mass and building footprint, accounting for necessary stepbacks and coverage given the specific conditions of the site. And we use that to arrive at what we find to be an appropriate both number of units and density for this property. So setting that mass for this property, the R3 district does permit those mid-rise multifamily buildings that can rise up to 8 stories, 85 feet. So as well as looking at the density, we did look at the height along the corridor to really establish what we thought would be appropriate with keeping in with the character of the area. So we did find a couple of 5-story buildings you could see photographed. And there are also a number of 4.5 story buildings with an exposed basement. So you walk in, go up, and so those are taller 4-story, 4.5 story buildings. So with that, we did find the 5-story building was with the character of the area. So then we moved on to establishing the building footprint, setting the building back to provide for appropriate light, air, and open space between adjacent properties. One of the bulk variances we are asking for is a front yard setback. The existing building on the property does have a 0-foot front yard setback, which we are proposing 0 feet. It matches the building on the corner of Armstrong Avenue and Bergen Avenue. And really you can see that the front lot line is angled. So the adjacent building to the north, the upper corner does have a 0-foot lot line and really goes down to 4 feet. So we are consistent with that streetscape. The lot itself is 50 feet wide by 115 feet deep. And this is compared to a typical 60-foot wide by 100-foot deep, which would establish that 6,000 square foot lot size. And that 60-foot wide would really lend for a double loaded parking floor plan. So what we did find is that the lot dimensions, although a little narrower and longer, still do provide for an appropriate parking layout, which will accommodate the 8 ground floor parking spaces that we are proposing. And that will be a mix of 90-degree parking on one side and parallel parking on the other. So above the ground floor, the upper residential floors have a 0-foot side yard setback in the front. That creates that consistent streetscape without providing any gaps between the buildings. And from there, moving to the rear of the building, we are proposing an approximate 3-foot side yard setback that will provide for additional light and air, allow for windows along the side lot lines. Speaking of the adjacent buildings, the multifamily building to the north has an approximate 3-foot side yard setback. So with the existing 3-foot and with what we're proposing 3 feet, we'll have a combined 6-foot total, which really meets the intent of the 5-foot side yard setback requirement, which we are asking for a variance. We're proposing minimum of 0 feet, extending to 3 feet where 5 feet is required on the upper floors. The rear of the building, we are proposing a predominantly 25-foot rear yard setback on the upper floors. There is a portion that extends out to where it'd be 15 feet, which allows for an emergency egress and an enclosed staircase. And that's located at the southeast corner of the building. So with that, the building coverage on the upper floors was really established by the rear yard setback proposed and the side yard setback proposed. So we are requesting a building coverage variance for the upper floors. 75.45% is proposed, where a maximum of 65% is permitted. We find with the provided setbacks that this is an appropriate footprint and it does allow for light, air, and open space. So lot 1 at the corner here is developed with a mixed-use building. It has 0-foot lot lines. To the north, you have multifamily buildings. And then to the south, you have the rear yards of 2-story, 1-family homes. And they do have rear yards ranging from approximately 12 to 15 feet. So there is additional space between the buildings. So given the orientation of the property and the 5-story proposed, the shadows would really cast in the morning onto Bergen Avenue. And then as you get into the afternoon and night, onto the multifamily buildings, and then onto this is an adjacent surface parking area that the side lot line runs against our rear lot line of the property. And it's a surface parking area for a church that's located on that fronts onto Woodlawn Avenue. So it is my opinion that the benefits of the deviations would significantly outweigh any detriments. And with that, there will be no substantial detriment to the general welfare. The property is particularly suited for the proposed use. It's consistent with the multifamily character of Bergen Avenue. We actually are replacing, it's an existing, it would be a non-conforming two-family home actually in the R3 district. And I do find that the multifamily that we're proposing is a more consistent intensity of development for this site given the site conditions. The proposed building will be completely ADA accessible and will provide an at-grade lobby entrance. As you can see photographed, there are a lot of older multifamily buildings. They do have that raised basement level. So I do think that the ADA accessibility is an added benefit of this project. We are also creating the 8 off-street parking spaces. These multifamily buildings that we found they are existing and have been for a while, but they don't provide any off-street parking. So we do find that this is another added benefit of the project. In addition, we are proposing to reduce our impervious coverage and building coverage. There's an existing lot coverage of 100%, and we're reducing that to 86%. We are also providing for approximately 678 square feet of green roofing, which is approximately 12% of the site, and the stormwater detention. With that reduced impervious coverage, we are removing an existing one-story garage that runs along the rear property line. So on that ground floor, you are permitted to have 100% building coverage. We're actually reducing our building coverage, creating for additional light, air, and open space between the rear yards of these residential properties that abut our rear yard. So in addition, we are, as Mr. Cabato mentioned, we are maintaining the existing mature trees. We're keeping the general location of the curb cut, so we are able to maintain those existing street trees. And we're also providing for a mix of units, 8 one-bedroom apartments, 1-bedroom units, and 8 two-bedroom units. They are appropriately sized, 773 square foot average for the 1-bedroom units and 900 square foot average for the 2-bedroom units. And so I do find that this is an appropriate mix of appropriately sized units that will diversify the Jersey City housing stock. And as stated, the proposed building will not have any detriment on light, air, and open space. So likewise, there will not be any substantial detriment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance. The proposed mid-rise multifamily building is consistent with the purpose of the multifamily mid-rise district by providing for a broad range of multifamily housing. And it also will advance the purposes of the municipal of the master plan by providing for high quality, attractive units in this area along Bergen Avenue. So in terms of the variance promoting the purpose of the municipal land use law, I do find this to meet purpose A, which is granting the requested variances will guide the appropriate use and development of the property, providing for the appropriate multifamily building, and also providing an appropriate density that will establish the appropriate density in this area consistent with purpose E. We're also replacing the existing 2-family home with a consistent massing of a multifamily mid-rise that will complete the streetscape consistent with purpose I. And also the green roofing, the stormwater detention will promote purpose J. So in conclusion, as discussed, the site can accommodate and remain suitable for the project at the increased density. It promotes the purpose of the municipal land use law, and the project does not have a substantial detriment to the general welfare or zone plan or zoning ordinance. So it is my opinion that the project meets both the positive and negative criteria. I think with that, I'm going to conclude my testimony, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Let me stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you very much. Just really quickly to check, and we can come back to the commissioners. I just wanted to see, Lindsay, are there any members of the public who have any questions or comments on this application?
I don't see any hands raised.
Right. Well, maybe that was a heads up, and we'll give people a little bit of time. In the meantime, do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay. Lindsay, do you see anything? Kate, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I was having difficulty unmuting. I have a question for Mr. Sorry. I have a question for Mr. Bellamy. He just testified that basically the design of this building and the landscaping, there's going to be actually less impervious coverage than currently. But I'm trying to reconcile that with like the zoning chart comparison. You know, where it's indicating that, sorry. I'm having a hard time seeing this, but the zoning chart comparison on the front page seems to indicate that, let's see, that there's existing building coverage of 47%, and the proposed amount is 100%. And that's building coverage, but you indicated that there's actually going to be more more pervious area. Is that correct?
Yeah, Raul, if you could go to survey, great. So yeah, you could see in the survey here, you have the building at the front of the lot. Behind that is an asphalt parking area, and further to the rear is the garage. So I believe that the lot coverage is 100%. That number might be wrong in the zoning table, but
Yes, it is a mistake on our part, Ms. Donnelly. That was a mistake, and we're going to correct that in our drawings.
So the building coverage right now is 40%, 47%, but the lot coverage with all the asphalt is 100%, right?
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. And so you're going to, on what percentage of the lot coverage is going to be pervious to allow for drainage?
Who wants to answer that? I mean, and show that in the backyard, it's all grass right there.
Right.
That
yep, I'm double checking.
right. What's the dimension? It's 15.5 feet by 50. Is the backyard that was created, you know, after working with staff. So that
I believe we're
that's
proposing 87% lot coverage.
Repeat.
86. I believe we're proposing 86% lot coverage.
Okay. Okay.
plus the green roof element.
Plus the green roof. And do you have even a ballpark estimate of kind of the drainage capacity of the green roof? You know, I don't want to box you in, but just give me an idea of how efficient it is.
That might be a better question for Mr. Cravado.
Hey, Raul, if you could point out the square footage and where it is on the roof too.
So we have here 568 square feet in front and another 110 square feet in the rear. In addition, we do have planters. Right off the top of my head, I don't know how much that retains. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, actually, this close-up gives me at least a better idea. And you totally answered my question about the zoning chart. So I understand it now, because I'm actually more concerned about this than I am about the height, but I actually appreciate this. It's good. Okay, thank you.
Lindsay, have any hands raised?
Nope.
Okay, then we're going to close the public portion of this application. Any other commissioners have questions at this time? Okay, then we'll move on to staff.
Okay, good evening, commissioners. So firstly, as usual, I'm going to ask that the applicant agree to the conditions stated in the planning staff report dated May 11th, 2021.
Yes, the applicant would.
All right, and planning staff is satisfied with the testimony given by their professional planner regarding the D and C variances. I just want to add here that the existing Jersey City master plan has identified the R3 zone as an issue zone, and specifically it calls out some of the bulk that currently is stipulated as the regulating land use law. So issue number 1 in the existing master plan states that the R3 zoning regulations have floor area ratios and building coverage standards that are too low. Issue number 2 states that the zoning of R3 permits incompatible housing types and creates garden apartments, which are a low density form of residential development suitable for suburbs that are inappropriate in an urban center such as Jersey City, where land is scarce, population densities are high, and extensive mass transit is available. So there are issues that are going to be worked out within the R3 zone with the new master plan that is being drafted currently. It would likely end up having some design criteria that would be comparable to what is being proposed now. And having said that, planning staff also concurs with the testimony given that the bulk variances here would not have a substantial detriment to the zone plan or the public's general welfare or well-being. And it's our opinion that the density can be accommodated for this part of Greenville. And the applicant has done their due diligence here with meeting with the councilwoman and the neighborhood and presenting. And having spoken with the councilwoman, it was received favorably. They are going to be adapting the tree pits to save those old growth oak trees there, which, you know, as a member of the shade tree committee, even though I'm allergic to oak trees, I definitely have to marvel at the fact that these oak trees have survived here in such a harsh environment. And when we do have trees that are thriving, we would never suggest that they be removed and planted with a 2.5-inch caliper Chinese cherry tree, which seems to be the standard that developers like. But overall, staff views this application favorably, and staff recommends approval.
Thanks, Cam. Does anyone have any questions for staff or the applicant at this time?
I'd like to make a motion on Z20-051 for approval with staff conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call. We are gonna start with Commissioner Arugio. You're muted, Commissioner Arugio.
I just noticed that. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Patel.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Shadid.
Yes.
Commissioner McCormick.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Vice Chair Donnelly.
Yes.
And Chairman Jacobs. and Chairman Jacobs.
Sorry, I thought I said yes, but sorry, I'm going in and out.
Okay, so that's motion carries all in favor with conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck. So it's 9:35. So I think we're getting close to whether or not we're going to get through all of the applications today. We'll see how quickly we can get through the next one, which is 740 Ocean Avenue, I think.
No, it's
V20-096.
Patterson Street is listed next.
Sorry.
9193.
91-93 Patterson Street, case Z19-069. I was overly optimistic.
But that's the only other one I believe is 740 Ocean after
Okay.
this one.
I think this one might be the
Let's
tougher
do it.
one.
Yes.
Okay. So I have Jeff Lewis and Tom Lean promoted. I don't know who the planner is on this.
This would be Charles Hyde.
Okay.
Mr. Lean, before we get started, we have your notices, your affidavit, proof of publication, and Bridget will mark that as A1.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, this will pay one for this application.
And also, Tom, you agree to have your witnesses sworn in remotely, correct?
That is correct.
Great, thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tom Lean from Connell Foley for the record. The application before you tonight is located at 9193 Patterson Street, which is located in the Heights. It is very close to JFK Boulevard. This is an application that is a long time coming. We have been dealing with the planning department and the community for so long that our first community meeting was actually in person well before COVID. It was hosted by Councilman Yoon, and we have since dealt with Councilman Salah from the Heights. This was originally proposed as a 6-story building. It has gone down from 5, and it is now proposed at 4 stories. It will read as 3 from the street with significant setbacks at the 4th story. There are 9 units and 9 parking spaces, so we are proposing 1-to-1. We are able to achieve that 1-to-1 parking because we do have an easement on the property next door to allow for the drive aisle. I have 2 witnesses this evening. I have Jeff Lewis, who is my architect, who I think has worked very well with planning to achieve a design that is very fitting for the size of the property, which is 50 by 100. And I also have Mr. Height, who will testify as to the requested variances for both use and height, as well as the bulk variances. So with that, I would ask that Mr. Lewis be sworn in, and I would ask him to run through the plans.
Thank you, sir. I'm ready,
Raise your
Bridget.
right hand. I'm sorry, did
Yep.
somebody say something?
That was me. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, you're not syncing up with your picture. There you go. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And please state and spell your full name for the record.
Jeffrey Lewis, Jeffrey-Lewis.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, my license is active and in good standing in New Jersey.
And we accept Mr. Lewis' qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to start up my screen sharing. Jump right into this. So we're looking at the second sheet of my drawings right now at the existing site plan. So we are a 50 by 100 lot. It's 9193 Patterson Street. The existing lot had a 1-family building in the front, a garage, a 1-story garage that covered the entire back section of the lot. And then the rest of the lot was mostly the driveway, the backyard. This is mostly all asphalt paving, with the exception of planter areas on the left here, and then a few lawn areas to the front here. So we end up with about, the existing site has about a little less than 1,000 square feet of actual green space. Regarding our neighbors, just briefly, we have a building to our left at 89 Patterson Street, which has a 4.5-foot setback for most of it, and then turns in and actually is on our property line. We share a property line for a little bit in the back here. Behind us, there's a garage on the property behind us that's along our property line for about half of the property length. And then to the right at 95 Patterson Street, there is a 2-story garage located right on our property line. And then this is the building that we have the easement with. It's 3'3", it's a 10-foot wide easement. 3 foot 3 inches of that easement is on our neighbor's property. And then 6 foot 9 inches of that easement is on our property. And as it's written, that easement extends from the front of our property to the face of our neighbor's garage. So that's how it's written in the deed. Moving on, I'm just going to go slide over here to what we're proposing. We are proposing a 4-story building. However, you can notice most of the building, this larger square section, is 3 stories, and this setback section is 4 stories. We are setting that section back on all 4 sides of the building, and I'll get a little more into that when we talk about the plans and elevations. And then we also have a 1-story building on the back, which is enclosing our garage. We have the driveway on the side, and then in the front, we have 2 small planting areas that total about 100 square feet. We are proposing 2 new street trees, as well as a landscape block strip for those trees, new concrete curb, new concrete sidewalk, and we will also be rebuilding the existing concrete curb cut as a new 10-foot curb cut. That's it for that, but I just want to briefly go down to the next sheet because we are providing some stormwater retention on this site in the form of 2 dry wells. These dry wells are, they each hold 160 gallons of water and recharge on site. They're in a gravel bed and they recharge onto the site. With that, I'm going to go all the way to my floor plans. So we're going to jump a few sheets. It's not going to do it as fast as I want, but here we go. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to start with the first floor. On the left here, this is where our main entry is. We have a lobby, and then walking through the down the corridor, we have our sprinkler closet. This is a fully sprinklered building. Then a staircase that goes up to the 2nd floor. We have one door that opens into a really large trash and recycling room. Our meters are also in this room, and then this room also has a door that goes directly out to that driveway. We have the door that goes out to the parking area in the back. Like as was mentioned, we have 9 parking spaces in this area. One of them is a handicap space, and then we also have our bicycle parking. It's 1 bicycle rack that will be able to support 8 bicycles. And then lastly on this floor, we have our ADA adaptable apartment. This is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment that's 988 square feet, has open living, dining, kitchen, forced air for heat and air conditioning, washer dryer in the unit, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and then off of the master bedroom, there's a 40 square foot outdoor, just a porch outside, get some outside space for that unit. Going up to the 2nd floor, there are 4 units on this floor. I'm going to start at the front with apartment 201. In the front here is a 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit that is 727 square foot. Also has a 50 square foot deck on the outside. And this unit, besides being a 1-bedroom, also has an additional den space for a little bit of versatility. And then the deck that I mentioned actually also serves as a roof for the main entry to the building. Apartment 202 is 727 square feet, also 1-bedroom, 1-bath unit. It's got a utility room, then a large living, dining, kitchen that's open and cantilevers out 3 feet over the driveway. Then the master suite, the 1-bedroom of the property is in the front and also has access to a private porch, which is 40 square feet. After that, the 2 units on the back are actually mirrored from the front units. The sizes they're a little smaller because they don't have the bay windows, so the bay windows are cut off. However, as you can see, the outdoor space is actually a little nicer in these units because they're building those, we're using the roof of the garage for outdoor space for these units. And so what we did, we set back these roof decks 10 feet from the left side and then 10 feet from the back property line. And we're using that space to put our 5 condensers, 4 of which are for this floor and then the 1 for the ground floor unit. And then the rest of that space, which ends up being about 465 square feet, we're going to be planting green roof trays. Going on to, oops, excuse me. the third and fourth floor, and these floors go together. We basically have relatively the same layout on the third floor, and it's just been modified so that we can add a staircase to get up to that top floor, where each unit gets an additional bedroom, an additional half bath, and then access to their roof deck space. So, so when we look at the first unit, 301, I'll just look at as an example. We moved the kitchen into that den area so that we have room for the staircase, which comes up to that bedroom, and then also access with a private door with its own door out to roof deck for that apartment. And all 4 of the apartments on this floor work the same way. And I want to stick on the roof plan a little bit just to show you what we did to set everything back. First of all, we're setting back the building itself, the 4th floor, on all 4 sides of this building. So on the left side, we're set back about 7.5 feet, and we're using that space for the 4 condensers for these upper units. The front and the back, we're set back 9.5 feet from the face of the building. And then on the right side, we're set back actually 13.5 feet. And this is to, minimize the view of the building, of the 4th floor of the building from the street. And I'll show a little more of that in the elevations. And then also you can see that we're keeping, providing a buffer to keep people away from the edge of the building. So we have 2 areas that are raised planter beds, and then areas here, and here that are more green trays. And before I go to the elevations, the last thing I want to do is actually just talk about the green space here, because we recognize that we are covering most of this lot. So we did want to provide as much green space as we could. We do have the 100 square feet on the ground floor and the 2 street trees in the front. Then with the 2 roofs combined, the main roof and then that garage roof, we're providing a total of 225 square feet of raised planter area and 1,365 square feet of green roof trays. So it's about 1,700 square feet of green roof area in total, which again, compared to the 970 square feet that we have now, it's more, although, it's not the ground, it's green roof trays different. It doesn't count as impervious, but it is green space, which is something we were looking to do here. And the second thing that I think might have been obvious at this point is outdoor space is very important for people at this point, and we went out of our way to make sure that every one of these units has its own private outdoor area that its tenants can access. Okay, with that, I'm going to go on to the elevations, and I'm going to zoom in a little on the front so we can get a little clearer here. I think that'll do. And so looking in this neighborhood, there's not a lot that really ties the buildings together in this neighborhood. There are a couple of features that I did see kind of repeating over and over again. One of them was there are a lot of bay windows in this neighborhood, and then, like the 2-story, 3-story bay window types. And then a second was that there are a lot of front porches in this neighborhood. So those are 2 things that I did try to bring into this building. And I did it with a traditionally designed building with a few modern finishes to just try to bring it up to date. So I'm going to walk through some of those. So starting at the bottom, the base of the building is cream cast stone block. And then that's divided from the top by a 10-inch limestone band. And then above that, the 2 bay windows are finished, or 2 bays, excuse me, are finished in a dark gray fiber cement panels. The rest of the upper levels are finished in a smooth red brick finish. You can see these finishes on the left here. We have a fiberglass cornice, which is painted black. All our window and door frames are black. We have black aluminum railings with a modern cable style balusters. We have a small section of the 4th floor. You can see it here because it's a straight on elevation. That's going to be a light gray vinyl siding. And then going to the bottom, this is the rear elevation. And again, we can see we'll have a lot of gray vinyl siding. And then this is the garage section that is on the property line. So that will have a smooth stucco finish, which we'll paint gray. And then we are proposing some garage openings, and we will be using the same cable balusters to fill in these garage openings. And then lastly, I just want to move on to the side elevations. The one thing that we didn't mention as far as finishes so far, we do have a garage door. It's a 10-foot wide garage door. And it's going to be open grate metal garage door painted black. We went with a little wider door because it is a turn to get into it. So we wanted to give people a little more room to make that turn without clipping the edge of their car. Besides that, the other thing we can see on this plan is we are showing a person standing across the street. This is a 6-foot person standing on the sidewalk across the street and looking at the sight lines with the bay window and with the just regular face of building. You can see that the building has been designed so that the 4th floor is the view is going to be minimized at the 4th floor from the street as much as we could. Okay, and that's actually my presentation. Thank you. And we'll move on to the planning and I'll stick around for questions.
Jeff, I just have one quick question for you.
Sure.
Though we are basically going very deep at the 1st floor to accommodate the garage, the building directly behind us is not a residential use, correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Yes, okay, it is another garage and it's a commercial use, I believe?
I believe you're correct, yes.
Yep, all right, thank you. With that, I would ask that Charles Height be promoted and present.
Hello.
And I remind you that you remain under oath, Charles.
Yes, thank you, Bridget.
Mr. Height, we are asking for both height and use variances this evening, so I would ask you to address those and any bulk variances that would be encompassed by both of them.
Yes, and I do want to acknowledge that we did have a very thorough presentation from Mr. Lewis, who touched on a lot of the design aspects with respect to the project and mitigating the variances being sought tonight. We are in the R1 zone. Substantially, I think the main argument that we're proposing tonight is that we are an oversized lot. So the property is approximately 5,000 square feet. And given that the R1 standards really are designed to regulate 2,500 square foot lot properties, that's part and parcel of why we think this property can accommodate additional units. So we are proposing a multifamily use, which isn't permitted in the district. We do need a D1 use variance. The test here is particular suitability. So that's first and foremost the oversized lot. Secondly, as was pointed out, the property does benefit from an existing driveway and driveway easement. So this driveway does have to exist to provide for access to the adjacent property. We are maintaining that. That's part and parcel of this property being large to be able to accommodate and continue the easement, as well as be improved for the proposed structure. There are other existing conditions on the property that we are maintaining in terms of the impacts there. We are proposing the rear portion of the property be improved for the parking area, which will be enclosed. This area is already improved with a garage structure that sits at the rear lot line. So it's an existing condition. We're not creating any additional new impacts there. And we've just mentioned floors 2 and 3 and 4 are setback with that 20-foot rear yard setbacks. The 4th story, which I'll detail in a second, is setback substantially more. We did do a density analysis. We did submit that at request of city planning. You can share that now. So this was our analysis. We did identify a number of multifamily uses in the neighborhood. I'll jump through to the table. You can see the ranges here, generally from some of the 3 families, the smaller ones at 52 units per acre, all the way up to a couple of the larger ones on Summit Avenue. This is a large apartment building at 180, and then there's another at 196. So these are larger and much more dense. What's being proposed tonight is approximately 79 units per acre, where lower than the mean. And that was really just a product of finding that happy medium. As was mentioned earlier, this project does have a long history. We've worked with the community on trying to propose a reasonable development before this board. We were at much more greater scale at its original conception. We've addressed some of the architectural issues, as was Mr. Lewis mentioned, in terms of the height and the aesthetics of the proposed project. We have a vertical partitions that almost make it appear as though it's an attached townhouse from the front. That's part of the aesthetics design. While we do need a 4-story, 41-foot tall variance, the building does primarily read from the street as a 3-story building. The 4th-story is the mezzanine level, which provides the additional bedrooms for each unit and access to the direct terrace spaces, which, as Mr. Lewis just mentioned, is a benefit that all these units have, that outdoor space. That mezzanine level is substantially set back from all of the building facades, which mitigates the impact of that 4th story. So while we need the relief, that 4th story is not the full composition, and for all intents and purposes, it will read as a compliant, visually read as a compliant rooftop structure, albeit it is large enough to be counted as a story from the street. It's not going to be visible, and any other vantage points, it will read as a rooftop structure. I believe those are the main issues related to the use. With respect to the setback and other bulk standards, I'll just cover them, but this board's heard me say this before. I do believe they're subsumed and related to the use variance. So obviously the bulk standards are designed to regulate 1 and 2 family homes. We did try and maintain setbacks so as to provide for light and air and the egress at the ground floor, where we maintain the easement. So just to detail this so the board's aware, we are technically requesting a front yard setback. The predominant setback along the street is 8 feet 6 inches, 8.5 feet. The adjacent property is similar to what we're proposing, so that's where we designed from. So we are consistent with that being closer to the front yard. We are improving that front yard area with the decks and also the landscaping. So we are making the most out of that area. And we are also providing the street trees. So there's some benefits in terms of the improved landscaping. As was mentioned, we do need a rear yard setback. So technically the requirement would be 34 feet at a minimum 20 feet. We are providing that minimum 24 foot at the 2nd story, and we're maintaining the existing structure. It's a detached garage now, but we're maintaining that 0-foot structure on the lot line. So that's some of the rear yard and yard relief needed. With respect to coverages, the exact numbers for the property are an 87.7% building coverage and a 98% lot coverage. Again, the rear yard is already improved with the building structure and driveway area. So we're benefiting from that with a better arrangement for parking, trying to generate 9 spaces. That dovetails into the fact that we do need relief with respect to compact spaces. All of these vehicle spaces will be compact. Obviously, future tenants will be aware of this, and they will all have access to 1 vehicular space. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, but we do need relief given that they're all compact. We are trying to maximize the parking on this site in the rear yard, have a better arrangement with the spaces and the drive aisle. Which I should point out, the standard for drive aisles is 24 feet. It's very common that what's being proposed tonight is 22 feet. And while technical deviation or variance, it's very common and the site will still function, considering that these parking spaces are also smaller. So I don't see any functional issue there. That's part of the coverage and the arrangement. We do comply with all the other standards with respect to landscaping, front yard landscaping, bicycle. Obviously, we're meeting the intent with the 1-to-1 parking ratio in the rear of the building. It'll be completely enclosed, which is a benefit from an aesthetic standpoint. I believe those are the direct positive aspects of the application. With respect to the negative criteria, again, this board has heard me testify to the fact that the R1 is designed with the purpose to provide for infill residential development. This property is improved with a 1-story single-family home. So it's not technically a vacant lot and that true infill, but it certainly is an underutilized property. So in my opinion, the advantage here and the benefit is to providing that variety of housing to provide for alternatives for future tenants to have a smaller dwelling that still has access to outdoor space and albeit more affordable than a single family home in this neighborhood. In terms of detriment to the general welfare, the adjacent uses on both sides are residential, so we are consistent with respect to that. And in terms of the impact on the rear neighbor, as was mentioned, it is a commercial use, so will be certainly less intense than the rear yard neighbor behind us. We did provide for the setbacks at that 4th story, as was mentioned, that it's referred to as a mezzanine level. And as I mentioned earlier, it's part of the benefit of the design, but it also mitigates the impact from a light and air perspective and any shadowing that might occur from that 4th story. With that, I think we're trying to advance the land use law and the purposes therein. We do feel that that's an appropriate use. It establishes an appropriate population density. We've worked to reduce the proposed unit count. What's being proposed is 79 units per acre, which is a comfortable density in Jersey City and in this neighborhood. The design of it, we've worked on, we've had multiple revisions. I think this is our 6th considerable revision with respect to the design and the architecture. And that's just in parcel of trying to work with the neighborhood and having input from the community. So that certainly advances purpose I to promote a desirable visual environment under the municipal land use law. With respect to that, I'll conclude my testimony and I'd be happy to answer any other additional questions.
Thank you, Charles. Are there any questions for either Mr. Lewis or Mr. Height? And if not, I'll just briefly conclude.
Have any questions at this time?
I have questions, but are we going to the public? See if any public or no?
I'm happy to do it in either order.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions.
Okay.
If I could just briefly summarize before we move on. As Mr. Height mentioned, this has been a long time that we've been working on this. Lindsay has been our planner since day one. She's been very helpful in trying to help us craft what we think will be an appropriate use for this property. This final design, I think, is one that she agrees and I agree is a reasonable use of the area. I think it's aesthetically a good look. And with that, I will conclude and ready. We're ready for any questions.
That gives me a little bit of trepidation about what your proposals were before this. I mean, my big concern is that this stretch of Patterson it is like a classic R1 block. And yes, there might be a little bit more density closer to the boulevard, but it is a relatively low density block, and you're dropping this big block right in the middle of it. So I would like Mr. Height to speak a little bit more about how this advances the land use law for people living on that classic R1 block. How does this benefit them?
Yeah, so for existing homeowners and residents in the block, they're certainly not going to realize the direct benefit. The benefit is for future tenants, future residents to be able to find an alternative to a 1 and 2 family home. And that's when I read the intent of the R1 to provide for a variety of housing in scale. I think that's what I read and professionally bring to these projects.
Even though aesthetically it looks like nothing else on the block.
Well, so we did discuss this, and part of the front facades, it might not be as apparent in the two-dimensional facade elevation, but we are proposing bay windows, which is a common architectural element here. And
Okay.
Mr. Lewis can speak to more to that, but we were careful to try and bring in architectural elements that are consistent in the neighborhood. The adjacent property has similar bay windows. In terms of density, and I didn't specify this, but the average of the other multifamily uses that I mentioned and brought up is 90 units an acre. So that's where we were trying to scope out an appropriate density here. The earlier concepts were greater than that, or greater than the average.
So, but your average went, just because I looked at your density report, it went beyond the boundaries of this block between the boulevard and I know there's another little street between Summit and Pryor, between Summit and the boulevard.
Yeah, Pierce Avenue.
But I mean, I think that would have been the block to look at. And you're doing a step out to like Congress Street, which is completely different.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, there are 3 on this particular block, 3 other multifamily uses. Most of the other blocks are the traditional 2,500 square foot lots. Most of the other multifamily uses in our study area are all on larger lots. So that's where we try and compare apples to apples in terms of why other multifamilies exist. It's because they're also on larger lots, and that really is the underpinning here of the particular suitability argument. So notwithstanding, I just wanted to reference the density in this study area is approximately 53 units per acre.
Okay.
So we're in between the overall average and the average of the multifamily, and that obviously was reduced. We were at one point substantially higher in terms of the proposed unit count, and we felt it appropriate. We always knew that was pushing it. I always like to propose a density that is at least consistent with the average for other similar uses. And as was mentioned, the average here is 90 units per acre. What's being proposed is 79 units per acre.
And Mr. Height, just down the street from the subject site, there's a multifamily building that was built at the corner of JFK, correct?
Recently approved, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
at the corner of JFK.
Right, but it
different.
is right down the street from this project, correct?
Correct.
On JFK. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We duly noted. Okay, duly noted.
Okay.
Mrs. Donald.
I'm sorry. This is just this is right in the middle of an R1 block, which is a pretty classic looking R1 block. You put something like this in the middle of an R1 block, it doesn't become an R1 block And this is right smack in the middle of it. So that's my objection to it, but that's just me.
Understood.
I'm sensitive to it as an R1 homeowner. So but again, that's just me.
Commissioner,
Okay.
we completely understand. I have one more question. Charles, if you were to continue in the other direction on Patterson, there is also a very tall building on the same side of the street, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And I believe that is, I'm looking at it right now, it appears to be almost 10 stories, and it's across the street from multiple 1 and 2 family homes, correct?
Yes, that's along Summit and Patterson, and that is 151 units, 10 stories. It's on a larger lot. It's a larger
Yeah,
building.
no, and I understood. All I'm trying to
And
get
it's
is
on a commercial corridor. It's on Summit Avenue.
understood. All I'm trying to get from Charles is that there is a variety of different uses along Patterson as you're going down.
Yes. Yep, I'll give you that.
Okay. Kate, did you have any other questions or anyone
No.
else?
I don't.
Okay. Anyone from the public? Lindsay?
I don't see any hands raised, but I know we've been going for a while. So for those still listening in, this is 91 to 93 Patterson Street. If you have any questions or comments, raise your hand. And if you're calling in, you could dial *9. But at this time, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Well, let's give people maybe a couple of seconds and anything, let me know. Right. We may want to address, we're in the middle of this application, but we do have another application. I don't know how quickly that one will go or not, but we're not going to finish this one before 10:20 probably. So I leave it up to the board. I'm sure that the attorney and experts are listening on the other application, kind of what our thoughts are and our intent here. We want to hear another application.
No.
Okay, so we're probably unlikely to hear any more applications tonight. Lindsay, is there anyone from the public?
No.
Okay, so we're going to close the public portion of this application. Staff, any comments?
Sure. So this has already been mentioned a couple of times, but this project has gone through several iterations. I will say from the top that one unique aspect of this site is, and I think this has been brought up before, is the easement on the western lot line of lot 15, which currently provides driveway access for the neighbor and what was the previous building on lot 15. That's how they were able to access their rear yard garage, and the neighbor still has that rear yard garage. So the design of this site really had to be based around that easement. So that's why the parking is where it is. So I just wanted to point that out from the top. So that was a limitation here for the design from the beginning. Previously, there was like a cantilever design over the driveway, which we recommended that was revised. Just one example, but I just wanted to say that from the beginning that was a limitation here. This is also an oversized lot. It's a double lot amounting to 5,000 square feet, which does make it more suitable for a multifamily building as opposed to a 2-family building. So there's 9 units and 9 parking spaces. There's 5 2-bedroom units and 4 1-bedrooms. There's some sort of mix of unit types. As you saw during the presentation, while there is a 4th floor where 3 stories are permitted in the R1, there are multiple stepbacks throughout. There's 20 feet in the rear yard above the parking. And just to point out that there currently is a 1-story structure in the rear yard. So this near 100% lot coverage is not a new condition. There is an additional rear yard setback for the 4th floor of 9 feet, plus the 9-foot front yard setback for that 4th level. And there's also the side yard step backs on the 4th floor. So as you saw in the floor plans, there's really minimal enclosed residential space on the 4th floor. And it's like a duplex style for those units on the 3rd floor. So this helps minimize any potential impact on surrounding properties for that additional story in terms of adequate light and air. And the proposed step backs on that 4th floor is a preferable design for a mid-block multifamily building such as this one. There are green roofs throughout, pretty substantial. There's 950 square feet, so almost 1,000 square feet of green roof space. And there's stormwater detention through the use of dry wells, which I think helps meet the positive criteria by mitigating impacts of stormwater runoff, where currently there's no stormwater control for this site. So that's my summary. I think some of the main points that were brought up, but I can go into more detail about any of that if you'd like. I did prepare a staff report, which is put up on the data portal. That is dated May 10th, 2021. So with that, I'll leave it for if anyone has any questions for me. And there were a couple of conditions in my staff report. So we recommend approval with those conditions, which are all your standard conditions.
And I've reviewed that staff report. We're okay with the conditions.
Lindsay, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yes.
So, and this is based on, I didn't walk the block, but I did look on, Google Maps. It looks like there's maybe a demolition site at 82 Patterson Street. Do you know what's going there? I don't recall.
Mhm.
It's two families.
Two families.
It's a 50 by 100 lot that was subdivided to two 25 by 100 lots, and two family will go on each one.
Okay. So, I mean, just from eyeballing this lot, and I don't think I know it as intimately as Commissioner Donnelly, it looks like everything is 2 or 3 stories on this block. Is that correct?
On either side of Patterson Street here?
I'm looking up, I mean, Patterson Street's a pretty short block here. But up and down the street, it looks like there's a big building at one end of it that has some ground floor parking. And I don't know if this, it looks like it's Patterson and what is the end street here?
Not JFK, the other side?
Maybe this is JFK.
Because it meets JFK and Pierce. And there are mostly 3 stories at the end toward JFK. There's like a taller 3-story. But
Yeah.
that just goes back to my other comment. Like that was our main recommendation, is really stepping back that 4th floor. Like I said, it's very minimal residential space, and that because it's a mid-block structure, we felt that it wasn't appropriate to have a full 4-story structure here and to step back that 4th level.
Okay. And what are staff's thoughts? To me, it looked pretty weird to have a ton of 1st floor parking in a mid-block residential neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, they're proposing 1-to-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering why we would want any parking. Why are we using filling up a floor with 9 parking spots?
Are you asking me why they proposed 9 parking spaces?
I mean, what is staff's view on? I mean, I didn't think that the city was usually supportive of having this much parking, and then it seems unusual to me that it's not. I mean, it's parking on a small street mid-block in a residential neighborhood.
Lindsay, I'm willing to address that if you'd like.
Sure.
Well, I mean, Tom, I'd be interested in your view, but I'm also interested in the city's view because I mean, the city has general views on parking.
Yeah, I don't see the 1-to-1 parking as necessarily meeting positive criteria. I think it was part of the proposal from the beginning to provide some off-street parking. So if you're going to create a structured 1st floor parking level, why not add the spaces that space can accommodate, if that makes sense?
Okay. I mean, Parking is a very sensitive issue. I'm surprised, given the
Well,
nature.
there's also the existing driveway
Yeah.
that has
Yeah.
to stay there because the neighbor utilizes it. So that's why I said that from the beginning, because that's just kind of the starting point for for the entire site design. So that's why there's parking at all. To answer that first question, but as far as the amount, that is what was able to fit in that
Okay.
structure.
I'm just surprised that this building didn't, get any type of response from the neighbors.
It did originally. The original proposal, when it was a straight 4-story building with a different design, it was cantilevered over the driveway. Yeah.
Yeah, Chairman, the parking was really a result of the multiple revisions and multiple meetings with the community and Councilman Yoon at the time. Parking is a very sensitive issue in this area. We were informed by the neighbors that if we were going to do anything that was a multifamily building, they were really looking for us to deal with the parking issues that they currently have there. And as Lindsay mentioned, we were able to take advantage of the fact that we have this easement that allows for parking on the property. And if anything, I think that was viewed positively by the community, that we were able to accommodate this site with multifamily and also make sure that the tenants were able to park on site.
I think it's also preferable to utilize existing curb cuts whenever possible, because that way the on-street parking doesn't change.
Yes.
You're not losing any on-street.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? It's okay if not. Bridget looks like she's about ready to wrap things up.
I needed to stand up.
Then I could go forward a motion for approval with staff conditions on Z19-069.
Second.
Okay. A motion to approve with conditions. Commissioner Patel? I don't think I heard anything. Commissioner Patel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Commissioner, if you could just mute yourself, please. Thanks. Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Araujo?
Yes.
Commissioner McCormick?
Yes, I just want to make a statement. Here we are, major concern with a lot of our properties that we go forward here are about parking. And here we have somebody that's doing the best to get some on-site parking, and it's brought up in discussion of why it was being done. I just find that a little odd, no disrespect to the chairman, but I vote yes.
Commissioner Shadid?
Yes.
Vice Chair Donnelly?
No, I think this variance I think that this building has no place in this R1 block.
And Chairman Jacobs?
No, and I agree with Vice Chair Donnelly. I think that this doesn't. There is a large building on the corner with Kennedy Boulevard. I don't think that's representative of what's in the middle, which is all what looks like 1 or 2 family homes, relatively small sizes on a small street. And I guess I would say that I'm not unsympathetic to the concerns of parking, but you can make the argument that in that situation, if they allow for one-to-one parking, the neighborhood shouldn't be concerned if we built a 100-unit building with 100 parking spaces. And I don't think that that's really the case. So I think that in an area that's a half block from a major street where there's a bus line, it's my view, whether or not the city staff will say it or not, that we don't, as an urban zone, need to be encouraging continuous development of parking for all of our buildings. Regardless of what the community says, the people moving into our city in the next 10 years will have fewer parking demands if we build housing that doesn't have parking demands. But this passes 5-2, right?
Yes, with 5-4 to oppose, motion carries with conditions.
Okay. Good luck with the project.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, Chairman, I think you mentioned earlier that we were not hearing the last case due to the lateness of the hour.
I think that we should not start a new case at 10:30. So that's my recommendation, but I'll certainly listen to the rest of the board. If you guys want to hear this case, I think that it'll probably be quick, but that still is, even if it's quick, we're going to go to 11 o'clock or later. So Lindsay, I can make my recommendation, and I'll say that I am happy to stay on, but I don't want to make that statement on behalf of every commissioner.
How does Bridget feel?
Yeah, Bridget doesn't look like she wants to keep going.
Bridget's been writing since 9 a.m. this morning.
Oh, all right, so maybe that's the answer.
That's the answer.
Good, Bridget. Good.
Thanks,
I mean,
Bridget.
it's no worries. It's on every agenda that the chairman at 10 p.m. can decide that we end here due to the latest of the hour. So,
yeah.
So I'm
We still have
sure.
a few more minutes with the resolution. So.
right.
Yeah, but we still have to
Yeah.
call this to the motion. We have to tell the notified lawyers and all about this case not being heard.
Right. Do we have to formally carry that last one? Ocean.
Also, the chairman mentioned that we have executive meeting.
I think we
Yeah,
should
but
meet.
we But we have to notify the lawyer officially that this is not being heard tonight in the public.
Okay.
Yeah, the public's on.
740 Yeah, 740 Ocean Avenue, case Z20-096. Mr. Hadley, I'd encourage you to connect with the staff to talk about when this will next be on. The case is not going to be heard today.
But we can preserve his notices. Lindsay, does this go on the next meeting or?
Yes.
And what is that?
June 10th.
June 10th.
June 10th. Yeah, it'll be listed on the action agenda, and anyone who's here for that, you can contact our office. Our contact information's on the agenda, just to stay up to date with it.
So we're clear. So Z20-096, we're carrying to June 10th with the preservation of notices. Correct? Great.
Yes.
Is Mr. Hadley here? Is he on?
Yeah, I think he's on.
Okay.
It's Oswin.
It's Oswin. Yep.
Awesome.
Do you want me to switch him over or no?
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
So, all right, so he's notified. So should we memorialize some resolutions here? Get that done?
Yes.
So let's start. We have two cases that were heard on April 8th. Present on April 8th were Chairman Jacobs, Commissioners Botkat, Shadid, Arroyo, Brown, and McCormick. And the first case that we're going to memorialize is Z20-080. It's Mina Melik and Atif Nagoub, Naguib, 241 Clinton Avenue. That was, well, that was heard that evening and passed 6 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye.
The next case is also on the 8th, April 8th, same commissioners present. We have memorialized this once before, but this is a corrective resolution. The prior resolution that we memorialized on April 22nd had the wrong lot number. So this is case Z20-069. And it's BLDGUP Management LLC, preliminary and final major site plan approval. That's 130 Summit Avenue. So all in favor of memorializing this corrective resolution?
Aye.
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 So the next three cases were heard on April 22nd. Present on April 22nd were Chairman Jacobs, Commissioners Donnelly, McCormick, Mitchell, Arroyo, Patel, and Green. Sorry about that. So the first case is case Z20-016, Yagandrak Kamoor and Paru Patel, 132 Hopkins Avenue. That was a C variance. That was approved, 7 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next is case Z19-001. The applicant was 290 7th Street Association. That's the address of the property. That was an application for a C and D variance approval. All in favor of memorializing that is aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
the next case is Z20-068, 192-194 McAdoo Avenue LLC, same property address. That's a D variance. That again was approved, 7 in favor, none opposed. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next two occurred on May 13th. Present that day were acting chairperson Donnelly, Commissioners Patel, Brown, Arroyo, McCormick, and Green. The first case was an administrative amendment to 226 Bay Street, which is the address of the property. The case number is Z21-004. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
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 The last case to memorialize, same date, same 6 commissioners. That also passed, 6 in favor, none opposed. That was Stephanie DeManuel. That's a C variance for 114 Waverly Street. All in favor of memorializing that?
Aye.
Aye.
And that concludes the resolutions to memorialize. And now what do you want to do?
I don't know if we want to just end the record.
I think Bridget's been typing since 9 a.m.
Yeah.
You want to close the meeting or just,
Why don't we close the meeting first? Shall we?
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
just give me